Chapter 3854. Ah! Suddenly, Tang Sai screamed and raised his head. Everyone looked over and was horrified to find that Tang Sai was bleeding from his 7 orifices and his entire body was twitching. In the end, Tang Sai exploded into a cloud of blood mist. In this cloud of blood mist, a very inconspicuous black chi surged out and swept into the arena, entering Qin Ruebu's body. As for the 2 primordial fire tower disciples who were supporting Tang Sai, they did not even have the chance to scream before they were turned into ashes by the explosion. Below the arena, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. After Tang Sai self-exploded, the black chi that surged out of his body was not noticed by others, but he did. Is this the power of the demonic chi demonic diagram? Zhuowen muttered in a low voice as his eyes shone brightly. It had to be said that the demonic chi demonic diagram was indeed very powerful. It was much more powerful than the visualization diagram that he cultivated. Moreover, Zhuowen also discovered that Qin Ruebu's strength was actually around the early stage of the yin-yang change realm and was not much stronger than Tang Sai. However, Qin Ruebu's strength lay in the fact that his spirit had become extremely powerful and terrifying under the refinement of the demonic chi demonic diagram. If one could not resist the evil corrosion in Qin Ruebu's spirit, even if one was stronger than Qin Ruebu, they would probably be defeated by him. Only when one's spirit was on par with Qin Ruebu would one be qualified to fight him head-on. Following that, many cultivators below the arena went up to challenge him. Unfortunately, they all returned empty-handed. Moreover, the young talents who were defeated by Qin Ruebu all died in the arena in the end. Below the arena, everyone was horrified. They felt that Qin Ruebu was too evil. He set up the arena and said that it was a spa, but after the battle, he actually went for the kill. Originally, many cultivators who were eager to give it a try gave up. They were not confident that they could survive under Qin Ruebu's hands. Naturally, they would not die for nothing. Qin Ruebu glanced around and saw that no one came up. A mocking smile appeared on his face. Is there no one else in the Central Plains? You all claim to be geniuses of the younger generation, but you don't even dare to challenge me. What right do you have to call yourself geniuses? Qin Ruebu mocked. Everyone below the arena looked at Qin Ruebu angrily. This guy actually started a group mockery mode and made fun of all of them. Qin Ruebu, let me test you. Suddenly, a clear and melodious voice came from below the arena. Then, the crowd slowly parted to form a path, and a woman wearing a veil slowly walked over. This woman had a slender figure, and the exposed part of her skin was even more delicate and fair, as white and flawless as snow. She is Yang Yenyu of the 8 Gods Zhon sect. I didn't expect her to come as well. Among the younger generation of the Central State, she can be ranked in the top 3 geniuses. Yang Yenyu has been famous for a long time and has a very high prestige among the younger generation. But this Qin Ruebu has just appeared out of nowhere. One has been famous for a long time, and the other has risen against the trend. I wonder who will be stronger, too. Zhuowen's gaze also landed on Yang Yenyu. His gaze was solemn. In his divine sense, Yang Yenyu's cultivation was about the same as Tang Sai and Qin Ruebu. But the aura she exuded gave him a sense of danger. Without a doubt, this Yang Yenyu was a much stronger powerhouse than Tang Sai. Qin Ruebu also finally noticed Yang Yenyu. He licked his lips and revealed a cold smile as he said, I really didn't expect that even senior apprentice Sister Yang came too. Yang Yenyu landed on the arena leisurely and said with a light smile, it just so happens that I'm very interested in the visualization tower, so I came over to give it a try. I hope that junior apprentice brother Qin can show mercy. Qin Ruebu grinned and said, Senior apprentice Sister Yang, everything is negotiable. With senior apprentice Sister Yang's identity and status, after I defeat you, I won't kill you. Instead, I'll take good care of you. Yang Yenyu's expression changed slightly, and she shouted coldly, You're really impudent. As soon as Yang Yenyu said these words, her figure vanished on the spot like a ghost. On the arena, only a white shadow flashed past. Qin Ruebu, who stood at the center of the arena, gave a muffled groan and retreated repeatedly, all the way until he retreated to the edge of the arena. The white shadow slowly landed at the center of the arena. Yang Yenyu looked at Qin Ruebwa indifferently and said, "Junior apprentice brother Qin, you're a rising star. Your natural talent is indeed not bad. But this doesn't mean that you have the qualifications to be on equal footing with me. You better change the way you speak to me. Otherwise, I might not be able to control the strength of my attacks." Qin Ruebwa wiped away the bloodstains at the corners of his mouth, but he laughed loudly and said, "Senior apprentice Sister Yang, you're really gentle. You hit me so comfortably. Next, it's my turn to make you feel comfortable." Yang Yenyu's beautiful eyes were ghastly cold, and she shouted coldly, "You're simply impudent. Don't blame me for being merciless." As she spoke, Yang Yenyu attacked again. Her speed was even faster than before. The crowd couldn't even see Yang Yenyu's figure. They only saw an illusory white shadow. Qin Ruebwa sneered. A lot of black mist burst out from between his eyebrows and covered his entire body, turning into an incomparably hard black armor. Only his 2 eyes were left outside. Bang! Yang Yenyu's attacks came one after another, bombarding Qin Ruebwa's body. But this time, Qin Ruebwa was as still as a mountain. The black armor around him kept squirming, resisting Yang Yenyu's attacks. Bang! 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 Yang Yenyu's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, Qin Ruebwa was hit dozens of times. But every attack was blocked by the black armor around Qin Ruebwa's body. "I've got you." When Yang Yenyu attacked again, Qin Ruebwa saw the opportunity and grabbed one of Yang Yenyu's arms. Yang Yenyu's pretty face changed slightly. She burst out with all the strength in her body, trying to break free from Qin Ruebwa's restraint. Unfortunately, ever since Qin Ruebwa's body was covered with this strange armor, he was extremely resistant to attacks. Yang Yenyu's attacks could only make Qin Ruebwa let out a muffled groan and didn't cause any serious injuries. Qin Ruebwa pulled Yang Yenyu with his right hand and formed a fist with his left hand, fiercely punching toward Yang Yenyu's chest and abdomen. Yang Yenyu gritted her teeth. She knew that she could only fight Qin Ruebwa head-on now. Therefore, Yang Yenyu's right hand formed a palm and spewed out white energy to meet Qin Ruebwa's attack. Boom! The 2 fists collided, and there was an explosive sound. Yang Yenyu's beautiful eyes changed drastically. She suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Sweat appeared on her white forehead, and there was a look of pain in her eyes. Qin Ruebwa also let out a muffled groan, but he didn't give up. He laughed loudly and punched at Yang Yenyu, almost as if he didn't care about his life. Yang Yenyu was helpless. She could only passively receive Qin Ruebwa's terrifying punches. Every time she blocked them, her injuries would become more serious. Although Qin Ruebwa also suffered a lot of injuries, the black armor around his body was too strange. It helped him offset most of the attacks. In this battle of attrition, Qin Ruebwa undoubtedly had the upper hand. Chapter 38:55. Yang Yenyu stood up with difficulty. Her veil and the clothes on her chest were already dyed bright red. That was her blood. Junior apprentice brother Qin is indeed mighty and unstoppable. Yenyu concedes defeat. Yang Yenyu cupped her fists at Qin Ruebwa and left with the help of 2 powerhouses from the 8 Gods John sect. A trace of ferocity flashed across Qin Ruebwa's eyes, but he was quite shocked in his heart. The divine soul that he cultivated from the demonic vitality demonic diagram carried a terrifying demonic chi. Generally, cultivators who were eroded by this demonic chi could easily self-explode and die. Logically speaking, Yang Yenyu had suffered so many attacks from him. The demonic chi had already entered her body seriously, but she was not affected much. It seemed that the top geniuses of the central state could not be underestimated. Qin Ruebwa knew that he could defeat Yang Yenyu, but he might not be able to kill her. Who else wants to come up? Demonic chi surged around Qin Ruebwa, forcibly suppressing the injuries in his body. His gaze swept across the numerous cultivators below the ring coldly. Qin Ruebwa was very proud. In his eyes, Yang Yenyu should be the strongest genius among these people. Even such a powerful genius was defeated in his hands. The other opponents were all clay chickens and pottery dogs to him. Even if he continued to fight with injuries, no one could shake him. Sure enough, once he said this, The people below the ring were silent like cicadas in winter. No one answered. Qin Ruebua revealed a disdainful smile at the corners of his mouth. He knew that everyone below the ring was already scared out of their wits. No one would come up to challenge again. In the battle just now, you're already injured. If you continue to fight, can you bear it? Suddenly, below the ring, a voice without ripples sounded out and spread up and down the entire ring. As soon as this remark came out, everyone's gaze involuntarily gathered on a young man who was seated at the back. Qin Ruebua's gaze turned slightly serious. He looked at that young man coldly and said proudly, "Other than a genius like Yang Yenyu, you people really don't need me to use my full strength. Whether I'm injured or not has no effect on the result of the battle at all." Below the ring, everyone glared at him angrily. Qin Ruebua's contemptuous attitude made them very displeased. "Good. Since that's the case, then I'll challenge you." The youth's eyes were burning as he strode towards the ring. Finally, he leapt onto the edge of the ring. His back was straight as he calmly looked at Qin Ruebua. Qin Ruebua sized up the youth from head to toe. Suddenly, he laughed loudly and said, "One must know one's limit. A hollow god transformation stage and like you dares to compete with me? Get out of my sight." Qin Ruebua's gaze grew even more disdainful. Although he was bloodthirsty, he had no interest in fighting against cultivators whose cultivation bases were so much lower than his. In fact, he couldn't even be bothered to attack. Is there something wrong with this guy's head? A middle-stage void god transformation cultivator actually dared to challenge Qin Ruebua? Didn't he see that Qin Ruebua had defeated a yin-yang transformation genius like Yang Yenyu? He actually dares to challenge Qin Ruebua. He's obviously looking to die. Even with my peak 5 phases transformation, I wouldn't dare to fight with Qin Ruebua. This bastard. Below the arena, everyone shook their heads, feeling that this young man was really courting death. This young man was none other than Zhuowen, who had changed his appearance. Qin Ruebua was indeed powerful. However, Zhuowen had already discovered Qin Ruebua's weakness after watching several matches. Qin Ruebua's strength was actually very average. He was not even as strong as an early-stage yin-yang transformation cultivator. At most, he was at the peak of the 5 elements transformation stage. Qin Ruebua's main reliance was his divine soul. After cultivating the demonic qi transform demon diagram, Qin Ruebua's divine soul carried a terrifying demonic nature. Many cultivators could easily be affected by his divine soul, causing their strength to drop by a large margin. Take the battle between Yang Yenyu and Qin Ruebua as an example. If one looked at it superficially, Yang Yenyu was being suppressed. However, if one looked closely, it was actually Yang Yenyu who was getting weaker and weaker as she fought with Qin Ruebua. In the end, Qin Ruebua found a flaw and defeated her. As long as one could resist the demonic nature of Qin Ruebua's soul, Qin Ruebua's strength was only so. Zhuowen was the least afraid of soul attacks. This was because his soul had merged with the primordial stone. Soul attacks had no effect on him at all. Get out. I think you're afraid, aren't you? Afraid that you'll be defeated by someone with a lower cultivation level and become the laughingstock of the central state, Zhuowen said sarcastically. Qin Ruebua's face suddenly became unfriendly. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and said, "You're really bold. How dare you provoke me?" The corners of Zhuowen's mouth held a trace of a smile, and he didn't say anything else, but silently looked at Qin Ruebua. "If that's the case, I'll kill you in one move, you ant." Qin Ruebua was infuriated by Zhuowen. Killing intent burst out from his eyes. Then, he stomped his right foot, and a powerful aura surged out and poured down. It was as if the gravity in the surroundings had increased explosively. The entire arena shook violently. Bang! There was a thunderous explosion. Qin Ruebua turned into an illusory shadow and appeared in front of Zhuowen in the blink of an eye. Qin Ruebua did not take Zhuowen seriously at all. Therefore, he did not even release the power of his soul. He only attacked Zhuowen with his cultivation level. In his opinion, even if he did not use the power of the demonic energy demonic diagram, this ant in the empty god transformation stage was far from his match. Zhuowen laughed. Qin Ruebua had suffered serious internal injuries in the battle with Yang Yenyu. His strength had been greatly reduced. Now, he was still so arrogant in front of him. He was simply courting death. Zhuowen did not hold back. He stomped his right foot forward and a terrifying power surged from the bottom of his foot. Then, empty gods appeared one after another around his body. As for his strength, it was also increasing by the hundreds and thousands. The moment the ninth empty god appeared, countless cracks appeared in the arena before it exploded with a loud bang. At that moment, Qin Ruebua had already arrived in front of Zhuowen. His right fist came as expected, but his face was full of astonishment. Boom! Zhuowen punched out with all the strength he had accumulated in his life, pouring out all of it. Qin Ruebua's pupils shrank to the extreme. His strength was completely suppressed. Then, an even stronger power poured into his body from his right fist. He tried his best to resist this power. However, he soon realized that his broken god power could not withstand this power. This power was of a very high level. It completely suppressed his broken god power. Even if he used the yin-yang power that was unique to the yin-yang transformation, he was still suppressed. He was really shocked. What kind of power was in this guy's body? Why was it so strange? Crack. The crisp sound of bones breaking rang out. Then, Qin Ruebua could only watch as his right arm was crushed, and Zhuowen's unparalleled fist landed on his chest. Fart. Qin Ruebua spat out a mouthful of blood. He flew out in a sorry state and landed heavily in the ruins of the arena. Chapter 3856. Below the arena, everyone was dumbfounded as they stared blankly at the scene. None of them had expected that the outcome of this arena battle would actually be like this. Qin Ruebua, who was originally incomparably powerful, was defeated by this empty god transformation newbie with a single punch. Moreover, they also realized that this newcomer had 9 virtual gods. This was simply a shocking news. What's wrong with this newbie? He actually has 9 empty gods. Is he trying to defy the heavens? This is also the first time I've seen a nihility god transformation expert with 9 nihility gods. However, this nihility god transformation newbie is really strong. Even if Qin Ruebua didn't use his divine soul, he's still at the yin-yang transformation stage. In such a head-on clash, Qin Ruebua lost in one move. This is unbelievable. Around the arena, there was a flurry of discussion as they looked at Zhuowen in amazement. They were all guessing which famous sect this person came from. On the steps in front of the mountain gate, the 2 old men's faces turned ugly when they saw that Qin Ruebua was defeated in one move. At the same time, they were also shocked by the 9 empty gods that Zhuowen released. After all, they were experts of the older generation and had seen many things. They knew what 9 empty gods meant. The 2 old men exchanged glances and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Bang! Suddenly, in the ruins of the arena, sand and stones flew and exploded. Qin Ruebua was like an angry beast as he rushed out of the ruins. His eyes were red as he stared at Zhuowen. His right hand was completely pulverized, leaving only his broken upper arm. It was still hanging on his shoulder, and blood dripped down. It sounded particularly horrifying. However, Qin Ruebua was at the yin-yang transformation after all. His self-healing ability was naturally not weak. At this moment, his broken arm was slowly recovering. A blazing black aura surged from between Qin Ruebua's eyebrows. It rolled over and surrounded his body, looking very ferocious and terrifying. Qin Ruebua's killing intent had reached an extremely terrifying level. This time, he had lost a lot of face. He was actually defeated by an empty god transformation cultivator. This time, he would really become the laughingstock of Middle State. If he did not kill this kid, he would not be able to vent his anger. Whoosh! The 2 old men who were originally standing on the steps leaped down from the arena and blocked Qin Ruebua, who was about to make a move. Elders, what is the meaning of this? One of the tall and thin old men said in a low voice, Ruebua, you've lost this time. If you still make a move, wouldn't that be breaking the rules? Qin Ruebua simply couldn't control the anger in his heart. He growled, I won't allow myself to be defeated by an ant. I must take revenge. The tall and skinny old man sighed and sent a message to Qin Ruebwa. Qin Ruebwa, who was originally furious, suddenly revealed a look of surprise. Then, he took another look at Zhuowen and actually silently withdrew his aura. You've won this time. This is the door plate of the visualization tower. Take it. Qin Ruebwa took out the token and tossed it to Zhuowen before leaving the arena. He had been defeated by someone of a higher cultivation level than him. It was simply too humiliating. How could he continue to stay here? Zhuowen received the token and looked at Qin Ruebwa's departing figure with some bafflement. Just now, this fellow still had an aggressive appearance. He even thought that he still wanted to fight with Qin Ruebwa. However, those two elders sent a few voice transmissions to him. Qin Ruebwa's anger was suppressed and he decisively admitted defeat. Zhuowen was rather curious about what exactly that elder said to Qin Ruebwa. This young master is really skilled. I still haven't asked for young master's great name. The tall and skinny old man walked up and said to Zhuowen rather enthusiastically. Zhuowen actually didn't quite understand what was going on. He just nodded and replied, I'm called Dao Wen. Young master, you shouldn't be from the central continent, right? The tall and skinny old man asked with a grin. Zhuowen's gaze immediately revealed a vigilant look. He thought for a moment and said, I'm indeed not from the central continent. But senior, why are you asking this? To be more precise, Zhuowen wasn't from the 100 territories outside the world. He was a being from the lower dimensions that had ascended. After the tall and skinny old man heard that Zhuowen wasn't from the central continent, his gaze flickered with an indescribable light, and the enthusiasm on his face grew even denser. I was rash. Since Brother Dao Wen has already won the combat ring, then you can enter the visualization tower now. The tall and skinny old man chuckled. Zhuowen cupped his fists and directly leaped into the visualization tower in midair. The door to the visualization tower was arched, and there was a groove at the center of the door. The shape of this groove just happened to be exactly the same as the command token in his hand. Zhuowen placed the command token into the groove. Instantly, the arched door emitted cracking sounds, and then it opened towards both sides. At the instant Zhuowen stepped foot into the visualization tower, he heard the voice of the tall and skinny old man by his ears. Brother Dao Wen, the visualization tower is only open for 10 days. Therefore, if you want to look at the visualization diagram, you only have 10 days. I suggest you go directly to the 3rd floor. The strongest visualization diagram of the Divine Firmament Soul Sect is placed there. The strongest visualization diagram of the Divine Firmament Soul Sect, the Demonic Essence Demonic Diagram, is also on the 3rd floor. Zhuowen was stunned, and his gaze became rather strange. This tall and skinny old man was a little too enthusiastic towards him. He had entered the visualization diagram to look at their sect's manuals, and he was actually so kind as to remind him. There was something wrong with this scene. However, Zhuowen didn't mind. His gaze landed on the bookshelves piled up in the visualization tower. The manuals on these bookshelves were all kinds of visualization diagrams. Zhuowen casually walked to the side of a nearby bookshelf and casually picked up a manual. This manual was called the Lotus Flower Visualization Diagram. Its level wasn't high, and it was of the same level as the Green Lotus Visualization Diagram that Zhuowen had cultivated back then. However, Zhuowen quickly finished reading this visualization diagram and then continued to deduce it in his mind. In just 15 minutes, he had already comprehended this Lotus Flower Visualization Diagram. Moreover, he used the special energy of the Great Word Stone to combine the Ancient Sword Visualization Diagram and the Green Lotus Visualization Diagram, fusing them together to create a new visualization diagram. Zhuowen browsed through the manuals one by one and spent 2 days to finish reading all the visualization diagrams on the 1st floor of the visualization tower. Moreover, he used the ability of the Great Word Stone to finally fuse these visualization diagrams together and create a new visualization diagram. Zhuowen named this visualization diagram the Primordial Chaos Visualization Diagram. The Primordial Chaos Visualization Diagram was the same as the Primordial Chaos Movement Technique and the Primordial Chaos Soldier Art. They all had the potential to be fused. They could be continuously upgraded by fusing with other visualization diagrams. Zhuo Wen spent 3 days to finish looking through all the visualization diagrams on the second level. He also integrated all of these visualization diagrams into the primordial visualization diagram. Meanwhile, the primordial chaos visualization diagram had also successfully advanced to the 6th level. Now, as long as he cultivated the primordial chaos visualization diagram, his spirit would be able to break through and smoothly reach the heaven-crushing 6th transformation stage. When Zhuoan arrived at the 3rd floor, he discovered that there were only 2 visualization diagrams on the 3rd floor. One was the demonic essence demonic diagram, and the other was the ultimate dark heaven diagram. Chapter 3857. The portrait in the Imperial Shentian diagram was very simple. On the top half of the portrait was an arc that resembled the sky. Under the sky, a blazing yellow light surged. This light seemed to be alive as it kept flashing. It was as if it was going to break through the arc in the sky and completely pierce through it. The only pity was that the Imperial Shentian diagram was not complete. 1/3 of the Imperial Shentian diagram was missing. Zhuoan did not know what the missing part of the diagram was. On the other hand, the reason Zhuo Wen had paid attention to this visualization diagram with a single glance was because he'd sensed a vast and surging impact from it as soon as he laid eyes on it. This impact was far greater than the demonic Qi demonic diagram. Without a doubt, this Imperial Shentian diagram's grade should be higher than the demonic Qi demonic diagram. However, the Imperial Shentian diagram was missing a part, so its value might be similar to the demonic Qi demonic diagram. Zhuoan silently studied the Imperial Shentian diagram before his gaze finally landed on the demonic Qi demonic diagram. The demonic Qi demonic diagram's image could be said to be extremely evil. It was a demon whose entire body was covered in black fog. This demon was very tall, and its body was surging with demonic aura. It was impossible to see its face clearly. The only eye-catching thing should be its demonic eyes that even the demonic aura could not hide. This pair of demonic eyes had 9 layers of pupils. Upon closer inspection, it seemed as if these pupils were rotating together. It was easy to be dazzled if one looked at it for too long. Zhuoan's gaze was serious. He finally knew why the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's previous sect masters had been unable to cultivate this visualization diagram to perfection. The main reason was that this visualization diagram was simply too evil. If one's mind was slightly distracted while cultivating this diagram, it was very easy to be bewitched by this pair of eyes and suffer qi deviation. Zhuo Wen guessed that there should be many powerful cultivators in the Divine Firmament Soul Sect who had suffered qi deviation after cultivating this visualization diagram, greatly damaging their vitality. Zhuoan had also almost been bewitched by this pair of demonic eyes. Fortunately, his mind and soul were extraordinary. Thinking of this, Zhuoan felt a trace of admiration for Qin Ruebua. This person was really talented to be able to cultivate the demonic vitality demonic diagram to great accomplishment in such a short time. Zhuoan glanced at the demonify diagram and the highest Shentian diagram. Although his comprehension ability had been improved by the highest word stone, it had indeed reached a level that ordinary people could not reach. However, he only had 7 days left in this visualization diagram, and the demonic energy transmutation diagram and the Imperial Shentian diagram were both extremely profound visualization diagrams. He estimated that with his comprehension ability, he would only need 5 days to fully comprehend the demonic vitality demonic diagram. It would take him at least 6 days to comprehend the Imperial Shentian diagram. After all, the Imperial Shentian diagram was of a higher level than the demonic vitality demonic diagram. Furthermore, it was incomplete, so it was naturally more time-consuming. Therefore, he could only choose one of the 2 visualization diagrams. Zhuoan naturally chose the higher-level Imperial Shentian diagram. Although the diagram was incomplete, he had the primordial stone. He could use the primordial stone to deduce the incomplete parts of the diagram and completely perfect it. Once the Imperial Shentian diagram was completed, its level would probably far surpass the demonic energy transmutation diagram. It would be a more valuable visualization diagram to cultivate. Zhuowen was a decisive person. Therefore, after making this decision, he immediately sat cross-legged in front of the imperial Shentian diagram. He stared at the diagram on it and focused on comprehending it. The highest word stone in his soul surged with a mysterious and distant purple light as Zhuowen comprehended the diagram. It was helping him to comprehend the imperial Shentian diagram. Time passed day by day. It was the 9th day since Zhuowen entered the visualization tower. Zhuowen was still sitting in front of the imperial Shentian diagram. A dim yellow light flickered between his eyebrows. All of a sudden, he opened his eyes. A light that couldn't be looked at directly flashed across his eyes. The light on his forehead suddenly bloomed and turned into countless yellow light beams. These beams of light swept upward and finally condensed into a yellow pillar of light. It seemed like it was going to soar into the sky and pierce through the dome of heaven. The moment this pillar of light formed, the yellow color immediately turned into a faint purple color. Then, gold surged within the faint purple color. Finally, the purple and gold colors merged together perfectly. Zhuowen's mind moved. The purple-gold pillar of light immediately dissipated into countless light spots and merged into the depths of Zhuowen's eyebrows. Zhuowen slowly stood up. His eyes were filled with excitement. He had completely comprehended the imperial Shentian diagram on the 8th day. Of course, he had only comprehended the incomplete diagram of the imperial Shentian diagram. As for the complete imperial Shentian diagram, it was not very likely that he could fully comprehend it. On the 9th day, he used the Tai word stone to completely merge the imperial Shentian diagram with the primordial meditation diagram. Although Zhuowen did not know the exact grade of the imperial Shentian diagram, he could feel that the primordial meditation diagram had undergone some kind of transformation after it merged with the imperial Shentian diagram. He was sure that the primordial meditation diagram was of a higher grade than the demonic energy demonic diagram. If he could completely deduce and perfect the imperial Shentian diagram, the primordial meditation diagram's power would become very terrifying. It would far surpass the demonic energy demonic diagram. Of course, the imperial Shentian diagram's grade was too high. If he were to use the Tai word stone to deduce and perfect it, it would probably take a very long time. However, Zhuowen was not in a hurry. The primordial meditation diagram had already given him enough surprises. Now that his spirit was cultivating, he did not have to worry at all in the heaven-crushing stage. The primordial meditation diagram could at least allow his spirit to cultivate to the heaven-crushing 9 transformations. At least, before his spirit reached the heaven-crushing 9 transformations, he did not have to search for the diagram anymore. There is still a day left in this visualization tower. I might as well start cultivating the primordial meditation diagram, Zhuowen muttered to himself. Aside from the demonic energy demonic diagram, Zhuowen had basically seen all of the diagrams here and merged them into the primordial meditation diagram. It was obviously not very possible for him to completely comprehend the demonic energy demonic diagram in a day. Therefore, Zhuowen did not plan to comprehend the demonic energy demonic diagram anymore. It was better to cultivate the primordial meditation diagram. His spirit had already reached the peak of the heaven-crushing 5 transformations and was on the verge of breaking through at any time. However, he had been suffering from the lack of higher-grade diagrams before, which was why he had stagnated. Chapter 38:58. The person in the lead was an old man with a sage-like demeanor. He wore a green daoist robe that fluttered even though there was no wind, giving off the feeling of a banished immortal. This person was the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's sect master, He Yangshu. His cultivation was at the early stage of the Divine Domain Transformation stage, an expert on the same level as Sikong Chiyu. The young man standing behind He Yangshu was Qin Ruebua, who had lost to Zhuowen. The other 2 old men were the 2 elders of the Divine Firmament Soul Sect, who had been standing in front of the mountain gate since the beginning. 5th Elder, 6th Elder. Are you sure that this kid has 9 Void Spirit Realm experts? The sage-like old man looked at the visualization tower floating in the air. His eyes narrowed as he spoke somewhat solemnly. Sect Master, I can confirm this matter. This kid's cultivation is indeed at the Void God transformation stage, but the strength he displayed is not inferior to mine at all. Especially when he erupted with 9 Void Spirit Realm experts, his strength is probably above mine. If not for my carelessness, no matter how strong he is, he wouldn't be a match for me. Qin Ruebuo cupped his fists towards He Yangshu, his eyes filled with unwillingness. He had set up the arena in high spirits and challenged the many young geniuses of the middle ground. Even a famous genius like Yang Yenyu had been defeated by him. But what he didn't expect was that he would lose to a mere Void God transformation stage ant. This kind of battle record would probably make him the greatest laughingstock of the middle ground in the future. At that time, if the 5th Elder had not told him what he guessed, he might have immediately killed this ant. 9 Void Spirit Realm experts. If I'm not wrong, in the Li Yuan main region, only a descendant of a family can cultivate multiple Void Spirit Realm experts at the Void God transformation stage and obtain strength that far surpasses Void God transformation stage cultivators of the same level. He Yangshu's gaze became solemn as he muttered. Sect Master, what family is it that makes you so afraid? Qin Ruebuo asked doubtfully. At that time, the 5th Elder had only agreed to his voice transmission. He had only said that this person's background was very unusual and that he couldn't casually attack him at the moment. Otherwise, it might cause great trouble. If not for the 5th Elder's warning, he would have been so angry that he lost his mind. It's one of the 3 devil clans, the Heavenly Devil Clan. The bloodline of the Heavenly Devil Clan is very special. It comes from the ancient Devil Clan. Their bloodline is much stronger than ours. It is precisely because of the strength of their bloodline that the 3 devil clans are generally much stronger than human cultivators. Only some of the top human geniuses are comparable to the geniuses of the 3 devil clans. As for the descendants of the Heavenly Demon Clan, their most obvious characteristic is that when they reach the empty god rank, they will have at least 2 empty gods. The stronger ones might even have 7 or 8. This person is only at the empty god transformation stage, but he has 9 empty gods. He must be from the Heavenly Demon Clan, and he is no ordinary genius. He Yangshu took a deep breath and said in a low voice, 3 devil clans? Qin Ruebuo looked puzzled. He knew a little about the situation in the Liyuan Master District. He knew that the strongest sect in the Liyuan Master District was the 4 Shengzon. That was a true superpower. However, this was the first time he had heard of the 3 Devils Clan. It shouldn't be a powerful force. He Yangshu glanced at Qin Ruebuo from the corner of his eyes. He could see that Qin Ruebuo did not think much of it. Ruebuo, you're still too young. It's normal that you haven't heard of the 3 Devils Clan. I can tell you clearly that the 3 Devils Clan is no weaker than the 4 Shengzon. The experts of the 3 Devils Clan are even stronger than the 4 Shengzon. He Yangshu reminded him. What? So strong? Then why haven't I heard anything about the 3 Devils Clan? Qin Ruebuo was shocked. That's because the 3 Devils Clan is not human. In the 100 outer regions, the human race is the mainstream. No matter how strong the 3 Devils Clan is, can they fight against the entire human race in the Liyuan Master District? As the saying goes, those who are not of our race must be killed. The 3 Devils Clan naturally understands this, so they have been very low-key in the Liyuan Master District. All this time, they have been living peacefully with the other human forces in the Liyuan Master District. This is also why you haven't heard of the 3 Devils Clan, He Yangshu explained patiently. Only then did Qin Ruebuo reveal a relieved expression. He did not expect the 3 demon clans to be so powerful. If that fellow was really from the 3 demon clans and something happened to him, the Divine Firmament Soul Sect would not be able to bear the consequences. Their Divine Firmament Soul Sect was one of the top 10 sects in Middle Ground, but in the Liyuan Master District, it could only be considered below average. It could not be compared to the 3 Devils Clan, which was comparable to the 4 Shengzon. Oh! He Yangshu suddenly raised his head and looked at the visualization tower in the sky with a surprised expression. Sect Master, what's wrong? The 5th Elder and 6th Elder saw He Yangshu's strange expression and asked in confusion. Look. He Yangshu pointed at the visualization tower. The 2 Elders and Qin Ruebuo's group looked in the direction He Yangshu had pointed. To their surprise, they discovered that the visualization tower was trembling violently. Then, a terrifying violet gold torrent surged out of the visualization tower and rushed into the sky. What a powerful divine spirit! That youth called Dao Wen's divine spirit has already broken through. The fifth elder and sixth elder were shocked as they looked at the purple gold torrent in disbelief. Such a large purple gold torrent was formed by the divine spirit. It was so huge that it was simply inconceivable. Could it be that his divine spirit has reached the heaven-crushing seventh transformation? Qin Ruebua was the most surprised, and the unwillingness in his eyes gradually faded. If Zhuowen's divine spirit was really so powerful, even if he used the demonic Qi demonic diagram's divine spirit, it would be far inferior to this divine spirit. He knew that even if he competed with this youth again, he would still not be this youth's match if he did not underestimate his opponent. No. His divine spirit has just broken through to the heaven-crushing sixth transformation, but his divine spirit is too powerful. It far surpasses the divine spirit of an ordinary heaven-crushing sixth transformation cultivator. As expected of the Three Devils clan's prodigy, he has only been in the visualization tower for 10 days, and he can actually achieve enlightenment and break through to the heaven-crushing sixth transformation. He Yangshu's eyes revealed a trace of admiration as he muttered in a low voice. Qin Ruebua, on the other hand, was really shocked. Such powerful divine spirit, and he had actually just broken through to the divine spirit sixth transformation? Could this be a joke? His divine spirit had already reached the peak of the heaven-crushing sixth transformation, but compared to this divine spirit torrent, it was still far inferior. He had thought that Dao Wen's divine spirit had broken through to the heaven-crushing seventh transformation. Of course, he naturally would not doubt He Yangshu's judgment. After all, the latter was the divine firmament soul sect's strongest cultivator, and his judgment was much more experienced than his. This time, Qin Ruebua could be considered to have wholeheartedly accepted his loss. Qin Ruebua naturally felt that he was no match for the Three Devils clan's prodigy. Thus, losing to such a prodigy was not considered embarrassing. The purple gold torrent gradually extinguished and finally disappeared. Then, the doors of the visualization tower slowly opened, and a slender figure walked out from within. Let's go. Let's go pay our respects to this young master. Chapter 38:59. Zhuowen walked out of the visualization tower's door, his eyes flashing with excitement. He didn't expect that his soul would actually break through so quickly, only using less than half a day. He knew that all of this was thanks to the primordial chaos visualization diagram. This was a visualization diagram that he had created by using the primordial chaos stone and fusing various visualization diagrams. It was the most suitable visualization diagram for him. He only needed to cultivate, and the speed of his breakthrough was so fast that even he was a little surprised. Although he still had half a day in the visualization tower, Zhuowen didn't stay any longer. Inside the visualization tower, apart from the demonic origin transmutation diagram, Zhuowen had basically comprehended most of the visualization diagrams. There was no use in staying any longer. Zhuowen suddenly noticed that 4 figures were flying over from below the visualization tower. The person in the lead was an old man in green robes with a sage-like demeanor. The invisible aura emitted by this old man was extremely vast, causing Zhuowen's pupils to involuntarily constrict as he looked at this old man with fear. If Zhuowen wasn't wrong, this old man's aura was very powerful, not inferior to Sikong Chiyu at all. This old man should also be an early-stage God domain transformation expert, very likely the divine firmament soul sect's sect master. As for the 3 people behind the old man, Zhuowen wasn't unfamiliar with them. They were Qin Ruebua and the 2 divine firmament soul sect elders presiding over the arena. Zhuowen also noticed in surprise that Qin Ruebua, who originally had an unfriendly expression towards him, didn't have any enmity towards him at this moment. Instead, he discovered that Qin Ruebua's gaze was filled with passion and admiration. This made Zhuowen somewhat confused. He remembered that after Qin Ruebua was persuaded by the 2 elders, his gaze was still very terrifying when he looked at him, as if he wanted nothing more than to eat him. Now that they hadn't seen each other for 10 days, wasn't this change a little too big? Young friend Dao Wen, I'm the divine firmament soul sect's sect master, He Yangshu. I wonder what you think of our Divine Firmament Soul Sect's visualization tower? He Yangshu revealed a warm smile. Zhuowen nodded inwardly. It seemed that his guess was right. This green-robed old man was indeed the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's sect master. However, this was the first time they were meeting, right? Why was he so kind and smiling? Moreover, Zhuowen didn't think that a mere junior like him would be able to make the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's sect master come personally to meet him. Could it be because I defeated Qin Ruebua, so he wanted to meet him? But He Yangshu's attitude towards him really made Zhuowen somewhat at a loss. Also, the attitude of Qin Ruebua and the other two who followed He Yangshu was a little too gentle. I beat up the strongest prodigy of your Divine Firmament Soul Sect and made him lose face in front of everyone. Don't you hold a grudge against me at all? This was clearly not playing by the rules. Zhuowen complained in his heart, but he didn't dare to be negligent in front of He Yangshu. He cupped his fists and said, "The Divine Firmament Soul Sect is indeed the #1 sect in middle ground for cultivating the soul. The manuals in the visualization tower have benefited me greatly." The smile on He Yangshu's face became even more warm. "It's good that you're satisfied with the visualization tower. Are you interested in coming to our Divine Firmament Soul Sect as a guest? Let me do my duty as a host." Zhuowen was stunned. He carefully sized up He Yangshu. He could tell that the latter's words didn't seem to be false. He really wanted to invite him to the Divine Firmament Soul Sect as a guest. Zhuowen hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Since sect master he is so kind, I can't refuse." Zhuowen thought for a moment. Hongwu Shengzon's entrance trial was nearing. This Divine Firmament Soul Sect was one of the top 10 factions in Middle Ground. They probably had a more detailed understanding of Hongwu Shengzon's entrance trial. Since He Yangshu invited him as a guest, perhaps he could ask He Yangshu about Hongwu Shengzon. Seeing that Zhuowen had agreed, He Yangshu's smile became even brighter. Under He Yangshu's lead, the 5 of them entered the Divine Firmament Soul Sect and walked toward the main palace in the mountain range. During this time, Qin Ruebua intentionally or unintentionally chatted with Zhuowen. The former even occasionally raised some questions about the cultivation of the soul. Zhuowen was very surprised by Qin Ruebua's warm attitude. This youth, who had been full of evil in the beginning, actually had such a side to him. Zhuowen was not used to it. However, Zhuowen answered all of Qin Ruebua's questions about the soul. Zhuowen's soul was improved on the foundation of the primordial stone, so his comprehension was very high. His understanding of the soul was something that even a divine domain transformation expert like He Yangshu might not be able to compare with. Naturally, Zhuowen had no difficulty answering Qin Ruebua's questions. When Qin Ruebua saw that Zhuowen was able to answer so fluently, and that every answer was able to enlighten him, he felt even more admiration for Zhuowen. It seemed that the sect master was right. This person was definitely a genius of the Heavenly Demon clan. Only a genius from a super powerful force could have such astonishing comprehension ability and such a deep understanding of the soul. While Zhuowen and Qin Ruebua were asking and answering questions, He Yangshu was listening at the side. However, the more he listened, the more shocked he became. He could easily answer Qin Ruebua's questions, but he was shocked that Zhuowen's answers were not the same as his. However, after careful consideration, He Yangshu discovered that Zhuowen's answer was even more brilliant than the one he had thought of. He Yangshu looked deeply at Zhuowen. He was now even more certain that this Dao Wen was definitely a genius of the Heavenly Demon clan. Such terrifying comprehension ability and understanding of the soul were unparalleled in the younger generation of Middle Ground. Only the geniuses of the real super forces in the Li Yuan main region could achieve this. "Dao Wen, please take a seat." He Yangshu sat on the main seat and gestured for Zhuowen to sit on the secondary seat beside him. The secondary seat was second only to the main seat in the main hall. It was usually the seat of the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's vice-sect master. He Yangshu allowed Zhuowen to sit in this seat, which showed how much importance he attached to Zhuowen. Zhuowen did not act pretentious and directly sat on it. Qin Ruebua and the 2 elders sat on the side. "Dao Wen, I heard from the fifth elder that you are not from middle ground? He Yangshu asked with a smile. Zhuowen nodded and did not say anything else. The expression on He Yangshu's face became more and more certain. Then you must be from the Li Yuan main region. It's impossible for a peerless genius like you to appear in the central continent. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a look of understanding. He finally knew why He Yangshu and the others were so enthusiastic about him. It turned out that these guys had mistaken him for a genius from a major force in the Li Yuan main region. Chapter 3860. After that, He Yangshu did not ask about Zhuowen's background anymore. Instead, he chatted with Zhuowen about trivial matters. Especially when He Yangshu mentioned about the Li Yuan main region. Zhuowen naturally did not know about these things. He only touched on these topics briefly and did not delve too deeply. Thus, he did not arouse He Yangshu's suspicion. Oh right, sect leader He, I heard that Hongwu Shengzon's entrance trial is about to start. Is there anyone from your Divine Firmament Soul sect participating in this trial? During the conversation, Zhuowen suddenly interrupted and asked about Hongwu Shengzon's entrance trial. He Yangshu looked at Zhuowen in surprise. He did not expect him to be interested in Hongwu Shengzon's entrance trial. Hongwu Shengzon's entrance trial was a big deal to the entire Wukong state. However, to the prodigies of the Heavenly Demon Clan, it was a trivial matter. However, since Zhuowen asked, He Yangshu naturally would not avoid the question. Hongwu Shengzon's entrance trial is basically targeted at the disciples of Hongwu Shengzon's subsects. It has nothing to do with our Divine Firmament Soul sect. He Yangshu smiled. Zhuowen did not panic and continued. Of course, I know that. However, Hongwu Shengzon's quota is not only limited to the subsects. They will also allocate a quota to other sects that they think have potential. The Divine Firmament Soul sect's power in middle ground is enough to be ranked in the top 10. I think Hongwu Shengzon must have noticed it. Zhuowen said calmly. He Yangshu smiled. He was not surprised. Our Divine Firmament Soul sect does have 2 quotas. However, we do not intend to participate in Hongwu Shengzon's entrance trial. Oh! After all, Hongwu Shengzon is one of the 4 Shengzon. Isn't your Divine Firmament Soul sect tempted? Zhuowen smiled. He Yangshu said proudly, Hongwu Shengzon's foundation and power are indeed not something my Divine Firmament Soul sect can compare to. In terms of soul cultivation, Hongwu Shengzon might not be much better than the Divine Firmament Soul sect. Hearing this, Zhuowen secretly nodded. He Yangshu's words were not without reason. In the Divine Firmament Soul sect's visualization tower, there were many secret manuals that even the 4 Shengzon might not be able to compare to. After all, in the visualization tower, there were even visualization diagrams that surpassed the heaven-shattering tier. Although they were damaged, that was still very impressive. In addition, the Divine Firmament Soul sect mainly cultivated the soul. Even if they joined Hongwu Shengzon, it would probably not be of much help in terms of soul cultivation. Sect Master, he is right. Your sect's cultivation standards are more unorthodox. The 4 Shengzon really might not be able to give you more things. Zhuowen nodded. However, there are only 4 months left until Hongwu Shengzon's entrance trial. If you are interested, you can go and watch the battle. In the Liyuan main region, including many states, our Wukong state can only be considered as above average. In the trial, some extremely outstanding monstrous geniuses will definitely appear. We can watch a good show. He Yangshu chuckled. Zhuowen shook his head and said, I was just casually mentioning it. I really don't care about a trial of this level. He Yangshu and the others were all in awe when they heard this. They did not feel that Zhuowen was exaggerating. In their eyes, Zhuowen was undoubtedly a genius of the Heavenly Demon Clan. Therefore, it was very normal for him to say such words. That's true. Who is our young friend Dawen? Naturally, he won't be interested in such a trial. He Yangshu rubbed his hands as he spoke and continued, Young friend Dawen, I once heard that the 3 devil clans of the Liyuan main region have unique methods of cultivating the soul. If I may be so bold as to ask you to demonstrate your celestial demon clan's method of cultivating the soul for me, Jian Chen said with a smile. At this point, He Yangshu's eyes revealed a fanatical look. His soul had been stuck at the heaven-crushing 7 transformations for too long. Even if he crazily comprehended the demonic essence transformations diagram and the supreme Shen diagram, it was still useless. He knew that if he wanted to continue breaking through, he had to absorb more visualization diagrams. Only then could he verify his own Tao of the soul and find out what his flaws were. Zhuowen was stunned at first, but he quickly reacted. It seemed that He Yangshu had mistaken him for a member of the so-called Heavenly Demon Clan. However, he knew nothing about the Heavenly Demon Clan. He had never even heard of it. However, looking at He Yangshu's attitude, Zhuowen acutely sensed that the 3 demon clans didn't seem to be much weaker than the 4 Shengzong clans. They might even be stronger. Seeing that Zhuowen had fallen silent, He Yangshu hurriedly said, "Dao Wen, don't misunderstand. I'm just suggesting. You don't have to take it to heart. If it's inconvenient, it doesn't matter. However, if you're willing to show me the soul cultivation method, you can choose any one of the visualization diagrams in the visualization tower as a sign of my sincerity." Zhuowen took another look at He Yangshu. He didn't expect He Yangshu to be so willing to spend so much money. The most valuable things in the visualization tower were the demonic essence transformations diagram and the supreme Shen diagram. If he really agreed, he would definitely choose one of these 2 books. No matter which one it was, if he took it away, it would be a great loss to the Divine Firmament Soul Sect. Qin Ruebua, the 5th elder, and the 6th elder's expressions changed drastically. They hurriedly signaled to He Yangshu with their eyes. Unfortunately, He Yangshu didn't pay attention to them at all. Instead, he looked at Zhuowen with bright eyes. He knew that whether he could obtain the opportunity to break through depended on the youth in front of him. "Sect Master I won't bully you. I agree to your conditions. If you can really comprehend something, I want to borrow the demonic essence transformations diagram in the visualization tower to study for a month. If you don't gain anything, I won't take anything from your Divine Firmament Soul Sec," Zhuowen said indifferently. He Yangshu was stunned for a moment before revealing an excited expression. He didn't expect Zhuowen to be so easy to talk to. "Thank you, Brother Dao Wen." He Yangshu bowed deeply to Zhuowen. This was his sincere gratitude. Qin Ruebua and the 2 elders looked at Zhuowen with eyes full of admiration. He was clearly a genius from a large faction, but he could still be so approachable. There weren't many people like him in the 100 regions. "Follow me to the square outside the main hall." As Zhuowen spoke, he took a step forward and landed in the center of the square outside. He Yangshu and the other 3 followed closely behind. They all stared at Zhuowen without blinking. Zhuowen wasn't a genius from the Heavenly Demon Clan, so he naturally didn't know the Heavenly Demon Clan's soul cultivation technique. However, He Yangshu probably hadn't seen a cultivator from the Heavenly Demon Clan before, so he definitely wouldn't be able to tell if Zhuowen used the soul cultivation technique. Zhuowen planned to use the primordial chaos visualization diagram. This visualization diagram was the strength of a large family and faintly surpassed the supreme Shen diagram. Chapter 3861. Rumble. A purple-gold torrent shot out from between Zhuowen's brows and transformed into a purple-gold river that would never change. Zhuowen stepped onto the purple-gold river with his right foot. Zhuowen walked up step by step and ascended into the sky like a soaring cloud. A terrifying aura crushed down like a tidal wave and enveloped the entire Divine Firmament Soul Sect. Bam, bam, bam. Qin Ruebua, the 5th elder, and the 6th elder's expressions changed drastically. Their bodies trembled as they knelt on the ground. The aura of this purple-gold river was too terrifying. It suppressed their souls to the point that they were constantly scrambling around. Upon closer inspection, cherry-red blood flowed out from between their brows. This was a sign that their souls had been injured. He Yangshu stood in the same spot, but from his slightly trembling shoulders, it was clear that He Yangshu was also slightly affected. Although Zhuowen's soul had just broken through to the heaven-crushing 6 transformations, The primordial chaos visualization diagram that he cultivated had surpassed the demonic chi transformation diagram and the supreme Shen diagram in the visualization tower. In addition, the power of his soul was also extremely extraordinary. Therefore, even though He Yangshu's soul cultivation was a whole major realm higher than Zhuowen's, he was still affected by Zhuowen's soul. So powerful. So powerful, Qin Ruebua, the fifth elder, and the sixth elder supported each other with difficulty and sat cross-legged on the side. They began to circulate their soul power together and barely managed to withstand the purple gold river's aura. He Yangshu stared fixedly at the purple gold river, and the more he looked, the more enlightened he became. When Zhuowen stepped on the purple gold river and landed on the ground again, He Yangshu had already closed his eyes and entered a state of enlightenment. Zhuowen waved his sleeve, and the purple gold river surged and returned to between his brows. Qin Ruebua and the other two sighed lightly as the pressure on their bodies instantly disappeared. They stood up and walked to Zhuowen's side with reverence. Your sect leader should have gained some enlightenment. Then I have not failed my mission, Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Dawen, you really are the successor of the celestial demon clan after all. Your method of cultivating the soul is just too profound. It's probably even greater than the demonic energy demonification diagram. Qin Ruebua raised his thumb in admiration. Zhuowen smiled faintly and said, Sect Master, his epiphany might require some time. It just so happens that I'm free during this period of time. Can Brother Qin open the visualization tower for me again? Qin Ruebua exchanged glances with the fifth and sixth elders, and then he nodded and said, since it's Brother Dawen's request, then it's naturally not a problem. Thus, Zhuowen took the visualization tower's doorplate and entered the tower again. Apart from the demonic energy demonification diagram, Zhuowen had basically comprehended all the other diagrams in the visualization tower. He had entered this time to comprehend the demonic energy demonification diagram as well and fuse it into the primordial chaos visualization diagram. 5 days later, Zhuowen opened the door to the visualization tower once more. He discovered that He Yangshu was still standing where he was while Qin Ruebua and the other two were still waiting by his side. Sect Master, he still hasn't woken up. Zhuowen was rather puzzled. He glanced at He Yangshu before asking Qin Ruebua. Qin Ruebua smiled bitterly. He also felt that He Yangshu's epiphany had taken a little too long. It had already been 5 days. Brother Dawen, the sect master promised you that you could comprehend the demonic energy demonification diagram in the visualization tower for a month. Why have you come out now? Qin Ruebua asked in surprise. Because I've completely comprehended the demonic energy demonification diagram, Zhuowen said calmly. I see. What? You've comprehended the demonic energy demonification diagram? Qin Ruebua immediately jumped up and looked at Zhuowen as if he had seen a ghost. Yeah. Why? Is there a problem? Zhuowen shook his head and said helplessly. Qin Ruebua immediately stuttered. Brother Dawen, then, to what extent have you cultivated it to? Zhuowen thought for a moment and said, I've probably cultivated it to the lesser success stage. However, I've already figured out the circulation route of the demonic energy demonification diagram. As long as I cultivate according to that circulation route, I'll be able to reach the greater success stage soon. Qin Ruebua was about to go crazy. It had only been 5 days, and Zhuowen had already cultivated the demonic energy demonification diagram to the lesser success stage. Qin Ruebua recalled that when he cultivated the demonic energy demonification diagram, it had taken him nearly 100 years to cultivate it to the lesser success stage. This was already considered the shortest time among all the experts in the Divine Firmament Soul sect who had cultivated this visualization diagram in the past. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be known as the strongest genius since the establishment of the Divine Firmament Soul sect. However, this youth in front of him was even more abnormal. He had achieved what he had needed 100 years to achieve in 5 days. This made Qin Ruebua feel as if he had lived like a dog all these years. I've already delayed in your sect for too long. I still have important matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving first. See you again. Zhuowen ignored the shocked expressions of Qin Ruebua and the two elders. Instead, He cupped his fists at them and took out the divine ship, vanishing on the spot. Not long after Zhuoan left, Yangshu, who was originally standing motionlessly on the spot, slowly opened his eyes. His eyes burst forth with a light that could not be looked at directly, and then a blazing light surged between his brows. This light rushed out from between his brows and shot straight into the sky. Instantly, the entire sky seemed to be pierced through by this beam of light. An incomparably vast and terrifying pressure crushed down from this beam of light, causing Qin Ruebua and the other two to involuntarily kneel on one knee on the ground. Sect Master has broken through, he has finally broken through. Qin Ruebua and the other two were not shocked but delighted, and their eyes were filled with excitement. The beam of light in the sky did not last for too long, dissipating into countless specks of light that surged into the depths of Yangshu's brows in a flurry. And that terrifying pressure between heaven and earth also vanished like smoke in thin air. Yangshu involuntarily roared with laughter. He laughed very freely, and tears gushed out from the corners of his eyes. His spirit had stagnated at the early stage of the shattering Heaven Seventh transformation for as long as tens of thousands of years. Finally, today, he found the opportunity to breaking through to the middle stage of the shattering Heaven Seventh transformation. Moreover, after Yangshu saw the spirit power that Zhuoan displayed, he seemed to have seen the path of spirit cultivation in the future. Zhuoan's spirit display was like opening the door to a new world for him, leading him to step into a new realm. He knew that before his spirit reached the shattering Heaven Eighth transformation, he would not have too great of a bottleneck anymore. Congratulations on breaking through, Sect Master. Qin Ruebua and the other two hurriedly went forward to congratulate. Yangshu was in a great mood, and looking at Qin Ruebua, he said, "Ruebua, where's Brother Dawen? Quickly bring me to see him. It was all thanks to his help that I was able to break through this time. I have to personally thank him." Qin Ruebua's expression was not too natural, and he said slowly, "Brother Dawen just left not long ago." Chapter 3862. Qin Ruebua smiled bitterly. Brother Dawen entered the visualization tower, but he came out 5 days later. He said that he had already cultivated the demonic origin demonic painting to lesser mastery and didn't need to stay any longer. He left just like that. Yangshu's pupils constricted. He suspected that he had heard wrongly and repeated, "What did you say? Did I hear wrongly? You said that Brother Dawen only spent 5 days to cultivate the demonic origin demonic painting to lesser mastery? How is that possible?" Qin Ruebua said bitterly, "I don't believe it either, but Brother Dawen doesn't have to lie to me, right? After all, the visualization tower was open to him for a month, but he came out in 5 days. It's obviously not beneficial to him." Yangshu fell silent. Qin Ruebua was right. Zhuoan had a month, but he came out in 5 days. This action was simply incomprehensible. Unless it was really as Zhuoan said, that he had indeed cultivated the demonic origin demonic painting to lesser mastery in 5 days. Yangshu took a deep breath and looked at the sky. He sighed. He's really a genius. In the future, this Dawen will shine brightly in the Liuan main region and even the entire Hashu realm. He's going to become a hegemon who dominates a region. It's a pity that we no longer have any ties with him. Qin Ruebua and the other two nodded in agreement. As long as Zhuoan didn't die midway, he would definitely be a top-notch expert in the future. After Zhuoan left the Divine Firmament Soul Sect, he headed straight for Evil King Island. There were only 4 months left until Hongwu Shengzon's entrance trial. He was prepared to enter seclusion during these 4 months, hoping to increase his cultivation level. After all, he still had many chaos crystals on him, enough to increase his cultivation level by 1 or 2 minor realms. When Zhuoan was about to reach Evil King Island, the disguise on his face completely faded, and he returned to his original appearance. Evil King Island was still shrouded in black clouds all year round. From afar, it looked like a black pillar that pierced the sky. When Zhuoan was about to reach the shore of Evil King Island, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. A strong sense of danger assaulted his heart. Whoosh! Whoosh! Just as the sense of crisis welled up in his heart, 3 terrifying attacks suddenly swept over from 3 different directions and blasted onto Zhuowen's divine ship. Boom! Boom! The divine ship exploded with a loud bang, setting off a terrifying wave of fire. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. The moment the divine ship exploded, he turned into a purple ghostly figure and left the divine ship, landing on the shore of Evil King Island. He raised his head and looked at the 3 middle-aged men floating in the air in front of him. His expression did not look too good. This was because he recognized the 3 middle-aged men's robes. They were the robes of the Hong Martial Divine Sect's elders. Furthermore, the cultivation of these 3 people was not weak. They were all at the early stage of the yin-yang transformation realm. This Zhuowen has indeed returned to Evil King Island. I really didn't expect that we didn't wait in vain. A tall and sturdy middle-aged man looked coldly at Shuo when a cruel smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. With the middle-aged man as the leader, the 3 of them quickly surrounded Zhuowen. Zhuowen's expression was ugly. The 3 of them were only at the early stage of the yin-yang transformation realm. Zhuowen was not afraid of them. What he was puzzled about was how the Hong Martial Divine Sect knew that he was on Evil King Island. "How did you know my whereabouts?" Zhuowen's eyes were cold as he asked. "You don't have to ask. Obediently surrender and follow us back to the Hong Martial Divine Sect. You should know that with your cultivation, you are no match for us," the burly man said with disdain. "Let me ask you again. How did you know my whereabouts?" Zhuowen roared in a low voice. His voice carried blazing killing intent. The burly man was instantly frightened by the killing intent in Lin Fan's eyes and could not help but take a few steps back. However, he felt that it was a little embarrassing and took a few steps forward. He said fiercely, "A mere empty god transformation realm and dares to shout in front of me. You are courting death." With that, the burly man took the initiative to attack. His right palm blasted out and instantly, 9 palm prints surged out. Every palm print was as vast as a mountain and had a terrifying aura. It crushed towards Zhuowen. The other 2 men looked calm and did not have any intention of attacking. In their eyes, a mere empty god transformation realm ant was not qualified for the 3 of them to join forces. If it was not for Sikong Chiu's orders, they would not even bother to follow. Only the burly man alone would be enough. The 9 palm prints were extremely fast. They landed on Zhuowen's body in unison, causing 9 deafening explosions to erupt. The burly man stood in his original position. His eyes revealed a trace of coldness and arrogance. In his eyes, Zhuowen was already a dead man. He did not even look at him. Just as the burly man's gaze landed on where Zhuowen was, a strong sense of danger engulfed his mind. Boom! There was a deafening explosion that reverberated in the burly man's ears. By the time he reacted, he saw a huge fist smashing into the space between his eyebrows. Poochie! The burly man flew out in a sorry state. Blood spurted out from between his eyebrows. A strange purple gold energy surged into the depths of his eyebrows like maggots. Ah! The burly man covered his eyebrows and let out a shrill scream. He kept rolling on the ground and screamed at the top of his lungs. He was like a prisoner who had been tortured hundreds of times. The 2 early-stage yin-yang transformation realm cultivators who had stopped not far away were shocked. They looked at Zhuowen and the burly man in disbelief. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He looked coldly at the other 2 cultivators. The killing intent in his eyes was no longer concealed. "All of you can die as well," Zhuowen roared. It was like the roar of an injured beast. It was low and shocking. "Kill him." The eyes of the 2 cultivators also erupted with piercing killing intent. As far as they were concerned, the only reason Zhuowen was able to injure the burly man was because the burly man had been careless, allowing Zhuowen to take advantage of the situation. Zhuowen summoned 9 void spirits and stood in front of the 2 cultivators, blocking them. At the same time, he pointed his sword finger at his eyebrows. A purple gold light surged out from the depths of his eyebrows. The golden light was extremely hot. As it surged, it turned into 2 large purple gold swords. The moment the 2 large purple gold swords flew out, the surrounding sword chi rushed into the sky as if it was going to cut the sky open. The two cultivators had just broken through Zhuowen's 9 virtual spirits when they felt the terrifying purple gold sword chi. Their expressions changed drastically. They actually felt the chilling aura of death from the 2 large purple gold swords. Swoosh! Under Zhuowen's cold gaze, 2 purplish gold swords sliced through the air, dragging long tails of light as they slashed towards the 2 cultivators. Before the 2 cultivators could react, the large purple gold swords pierced through their eyebrows. Chapter 3863. When Zhuowen took out the purple gold sword and killed the 2 early-stage yin-yang transformation cultivators, the burly man came to his senses. He was stunned by the scene before him. Since Zhuowen's soul had advanced to the 6th form of the heaven-crushing realm and cultivated the primordial visualization diagram that gathered the strengths of the great clans, the might of the soul sword insight he executed had completely undergone a terrifying transformation. The sword shape condensed from the soul sword essence also changed from the form of burning green lotus flames to the current appearance of a purple gold sword. Moreover, its power was extremely terrifying. Ordinary yin-yang transformation cultivators would find it difficult to resist the might of the purple gold sword. He deliberately used 2 soul sword intents to kill the 2 early-stage yin-yang transformation cultivators. He was not surprised at all. Instead, he felt that it was only natural. Zhuowen ignored the burly man's shock. He took a step forward and grabbed the burly man with his right hand. Then, he used his movement technique and rushed towards the depths of Evil King Island. After a while, Zhuowen arrived at the depths of Evil King Island. It was the entrance to the central valley where the Hong sect's new base was located. Prodo, who was originally tied up at the entrance, was nowhere to be seen. The central valley was filled with evil spirits. Only the slovenly Daoist, Daokong, and DKY were absent. Where are the 3 people in this valley? Zhuowen grabbed the burly man's collar and asked coldly. The burly man was already scared out of his wits by Zhuowen. After Zhuowen interrogated him a little, he confessed. Zhuowen patiently listened to the burly man. However, the more he listened, the more furious he became. It was as if he wanted to burn the burly man alive. It turned out that the location of Evil King Island was leaked because a disciple of the Hong martial divine sect happened to pass by Evil King Island and saw Daokong, who was cultivating on the shore of Evil King Island. Originally, he did not pay much attention to a little boy like Daokong. However, the more he looked at it, the more familiar it seemed. Then, he recalled the arrest warrant issued by the Hong martial divine sect some time ago. Out of the 4 people on the wanted posters, there were 2 little Daoist children, and one of the little Daoist children looked exactly the same as the little Daoist children on the shore of Evil King Island. The Hong martial divine sect disciple immediately realized that he had found the wanted criminal of the sect. Thinking about the generous rewards from the sect, his eyes burned with passion as he rushed to the shore. After knocking out Daokong, he carried Daokong away from the Evil King Island and returned to the Hong martial divine sect. After Daokong was brought back to the Hong martial god sect, he immediately attracted the attention of the sect's upper echelons. They all knew that Daokong was a member of the Hong sect. Originally, they were not interested in the Hong sect, which had been in decline for a long time. However, this member of the Hong sect was after all a hidden danger. Therefore, Shishan Hong sent an elder and a disciple to the Hong sect to silence them to prevent future trouble. However, that elder and disciple did not return. When the Hong martial divine sect sent people to the Hong sect's ruins, they only saw 2 corpses and empty ruins. That elder and disciple were killed, and it was highly likely that they were killed by the Hong sect's remaining members. This immediately attracted the attention of the sect's upper echelons, and they even issued an arrest warrant. Now that they had captured one of the Hong sect's remaining members, they could interrogate him and get him to confess the whereabouts of the other members. Even though Daokong was young, he had a backbone. No matter how they interrogated him, he would rather die than say a single word. In the end, Daokong angered the elder in charge of the interrogation. That elder immediately used a soul-searching technique on Daokong and obtained Daokong's memories. As for Daokong, because of the terrifying after-effects of the soul-searching technique, he eventually turned into an idiot. The interrogation elder obtained the information he wanted and handed it over to Sikong Chiyu. Sikong Chiyu immediately brought several elders to the Evil King Island and captured the slovenly Daoist and DKY. Especially when Sikong Chiyu saw that the person he wanted to capture was the slovenly Daoist, he was extremely shocked. After all, when they were ambushed by Prodo, the slovenly Daoist showed his might and saved them all. Of course, Sikong Chiyu naturally saw Prodo tied up at the entrance of the valley in the center of the Evil King Island. However, when Sikong Chiyu remembered the Hong sect's situation, he made a move to test the slovenly Daoist. After that, he found that the slovenly Daoist was unable to withstand a single blow. Hence, he made a move to capture the slovenly Daoist and brought him back to the Hong martial divine sect. From Daokong's memories, they already knew about Zhuowen's existence. They also knew that Zhuowen had left the Evil King Island for the central province. Hence, Sikong Chiyu sent 3 elders in the early stage of the Yin-Yang transformation realm to wait for him on the Evil King Island. And as Sikong Chiyu expected, Zhuowen had indeed returned to the Evil King Island, and had run into these 3 elders. But in the end, the 3 early Yin-Yang change elders were easily defeated by Zhuowen. When did Sikong Chiyu take them away? Zhuowen asked with a gloomy face. 3 days ago. They should be locked up in the prison of the Hong martial divine sect's law enforcement hall, the tall and sturdy man said with a terrified expression. How do you plan to deal with them? Zhuowen asked coldly. I am not sure about this. The tall and sturdy man lowered his head, not daring to look at Zhuowen. Do you plan to kill them? Or do you plan to get rid of them together after capturing me? Zhuowen said eerily. The tall and sturdy man felt Zhuowen's biting cold killing intent and quickly shook his head. Calm down. Sect Master will not kill Hong Shunwu and the rest for now. Because Hong Shunwu still has a lot of value. What do you mean? Zhuowen frowned and asked. Hong Shunwu has already confessed that he cultivated the incomplete version of the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. Before obtaining the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra from Hong Shunwu, Sect Master will not make a move against Hong Shunwu. The tall and sturdy man's voice was very hurried, as if he was afraid of missing something. He continued, so, you better not kill me. If you kill me, you will only enrage Sect Master. At that time, Hong Shunwu and the rest will not be able to keep their lives. Zhuowen sneered and said, you already said that whether Hong Shunwu can live or not depends on when he confesses the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. Who do you think you are? How can your life be compared to Hong Shunwu's? The tall and sturdy man's complexion became deathly pale. He suddenly knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Zhuowen. Please spare my life, I beg you. Zhuowen silently looked down at the tall and sturdy man and suddenly said, I can spare your life, but you must do something for me. What is it? The tall and sturdy man said emotionally. Chapter 3864. Zhuowen stepped on the burly man's spine and stomped him to the ground. He said coldly, if you don't do it, you'll die now. If you do it, if you're lucky, you might be able to keep your life. The burly man laid on the ground with humiliation in his eyes. His heart was filled with mixed feelings, but in the end, he agreed to Zhuowen's condition. Swoosh! A ray of light streaked across the horizon and landed in front of the Hong martial divine sect's majestic mountain gate. When the light faded, a burly man appeared in front of the Hong martial divine sect's mountain gate. Greetings, Elder Jian Zhong. The guards at the 2 sides of the mountain gate immediately cupped their hands and bowed when they saw the burly man. Their eyes were filled with respect. Where's Elder Sikong? Elder Jian Zhong's eyes flickered as he asked. One of the guards thought for a moment and said, Elder Sikong should still be in the law enforcement hall. He has already instructed us that if Elder Jian Zhong, Elder Puyi, and Elder Liu return, we are to look for him in the law enforcement hall. As he spoke, the guard looked behind Elder Jian Zhong and asked, Where's Elder Puyi and Elder Liu? The 2 of them are still on Evil King Island, so I came back first. Elder Jian Zhong said indifferently. The 2 guards did not think much of it and allowed Elder Jian Zhong to enter the mountain gate. Elder Jian Zhong walked up the stairs behind the mountain gate and entered the Hong martial divine sect. The law enforcement hall of the Hong Martial Divine Sect was located on an independent mountain peak. This mountain peak was named the Law Enforcement Peak. The law enforcement hall on top of it was extremely vast. From afar, it looked like a huge palace. After Elder Zheng arrived at the peak, he entered the law enforcement hall without any obstructions. At this moment, there were 5 people sitting in the law enforcement hall's huge hall. Sitting on the main seat was the Hong Martial Divine Sect's sect master, Shushan Hong. Sikong Chiyu sat next to Shushan Hong, while the other 3 people sat on both sides. They were all elders with rather high status in the sect. The 5 of them were discussing something. When Elder Zheng entered the hall, the 5 of them stopped talking. Shushan Hong glanced at Elder Zheng and nodded. "Zheng, take a seat." Elder Zheng didn't say anything and just sat there silently. "Where are Elder Puyi and Elder Liu? Why didn't they come with you? Also, didn't I tell you to go to the Evil King Road and wait for that Zhuoan?" When Elder Zheng had just sat down, Sikong Chiyu frowned slightly and asked in a deep voice. Elder Zheng said awkwardly, "Elder Puyi and Elder Liu are still waiting at Evil King Island. I had something to do at the last minute, so I came back first." Sikong Chiyu's brows furrowed slightly. He was somewhat uncomfortable with Elder Zheng disobeying his orders without permission. Just as he was about to berate a few words, Shushan Hong interjected. "Sikong, you don't have to be so harsh. That Zhuoan is just a nameless pawn. Even an early yin-yang transformation stage elder can capture him. You're sending out 3 at once. You're truly making a big deal out of this. Even if Zheng leaves, the remaining Elder Puyi and Elder Liu can complete the mission perfectly," Shushan Hong said indifferently. Sikong Chiyu fell silent. Shushan Hong already said it to this extent, what else could he say? Furthermore, this Elder Zheng was originally a member of Shushan Hong's faction. If he berated Elder Zheng in front of Shushan Hong, it was clearly not giving Shushan Hong face. Thinking up to here, Sikong Chiyu endured it and just said indifferently, "Don't do it again." Elder Zheng hurriedly cupped his hands towards Sikong Chiyu and said, "Zheng, understand." After that, Elder Zheng cupped his hands towards Shushan Hong and said, "Sect Master, Zheng may be presumptuous to ask, does Hong Shunwu really have the remnant copy of the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra on him?" Mentioning the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra, Shushan Hong's expression immediately became solemn. "At first, I didn't believe it. After all, the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra was destroyed in front of Hongwu Shengzon's many powerhouses back then, but Hong Shunwu personally displayed overwhelming righteous energy in front of me. Although I didn't cultivate the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra before, I can also recognize the aura of overwhelming righteous energy. What he displayed was indeed genuine overwhelming righteous energy," Shushan Hong said solemnly. The moment these words came out, inside the hall, everyone revealed visibly moved expressions. They all knew the value of the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. This was the #1 exorcism classic. Furthermore, even cultivators without exorcism talent themselves had the possibility of cultivating it too. As long as they cultivated this kind of classic, then they would not need to carry fluorites in the dark and could rely on exorcism power to dispel evil spirits, even refining evil spirits. Since the remnant copy is on him, why doesn't Sect Master kill him and seize his spirit ring? Elder Zheng asked. Shushan Hong shook his head and said, "Zheng, you're thinking too simply. That Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra remnant copy has already been utterly destroyed by him. Right now, that cultivation method is hidden in this old fellow's head. Can't use soul-searching art?" Elder Zheng asked with furrowed brows. Shushan Hong smiled coldly and said, "Memories obtained by soul-searching tend to be incomplete. If we soul-search that old fellow, what we obtain is an even more incomplete Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. How will we still cultivate it?" Elder Zheng scratched his head and asked, "Then what do we do now?" Looking at Hong Shunwu, that old fellow's appearance, I'm afraid that he'd rather die than say the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. Shushan Hong smiled coldly and said, "This old fellow is indeed stubborn. But he has a fatal weakness. It's shielding his shortcomings. He's very concerned about his 2 precious disciples. We just need to make a move on his 2 disciples. I don't believe that this old fellow won't cooperate. As he said, Shishan stood up and said to an old man on the left seat, Law Enforcement Elder, this matter will be left to you. It's best to fish out the Heaven and Earth Howran Sutra from that old fellow as soon as possible. Let's go first. Shishan got up and prepared to leave the hall. Sikong Chiyu and the rest also followed closely behind. Sect Master, I wish to stay behind and interrogate together with Law Enforcement Elder. I also wish to share Sect Master's burden and quickly interrogate out the Heaven and Earth Howran Sutra, Elder Zhong suddenly said. Shishan nodded his head and said indifferently, since you wish to stay behind, then stay behind. Hope that you all don't disappoint me. Before long, there was only Elder Zhong and Law Enforcement Elder left in the hall. Zhong, I didn't expect that you're suddenly so interested in interrogation. I remember that what you were most unwilling to come to in the past was this old man's law enforcement hall. What's with you today? Did you eat the wrong medicine? Law Enforcement Elder narrowed his eyes, sizing up Elder Zhong. Elder Zhong was slightly nervous but calmed down very quickly and said, Law Enforcement Elder, I'm naturally not interested in your law enforcement hall. But I'm interested in Hong Shunwu, this old fellow. Furthermore, you also know that if I can help interrogate out the Heaven and Earth Howran Sutra, Sect Master will regard me even more highly too. Chapter 3865. Clang. Patriarch of Law Enforcement came to the deep part of the main hall. He pressed his right palm on the wall on the left, and the place where his palm was pressed slowly caved in. Immediately after, a strange thumping sound came from below the wall. It was as if someone was walking quickly from below. It sounded particularly horrifying. Elder Zhong was surprised to see that below the wall, the ground about 4 square meters had caved in and separated from the middle, revealing a pitch-black tunnel. The dungeon of the Law Enforcement Hall is really secretive. The entrance is hidden here. No one would have thought of it, Elder Zhong murmured to himself. Patriarch of Law Enforcement said proudly, of course. This tunnel was designed by me. There are 81 mechanisms hidden in the tunnel, and each mechanism is different. Even if an expert at the peak of the yin-yang realm accidentally activates the mechanism, he will die. Elder Zhong frowned slightly, as if he was lost in thought. Patriarch of Law Enforcement didn't notice Elder Zhong's strange look, and continued, Zhong, follow me. The mechanism in this tunnel is horrible. If there is no guide, the mechanism will be activated, and it will be terrible. Patriarch of Law Enforcement reminded Elder Zhong several times, and then they entered the tunnel. Elder Zhong followed closely behind Patriarch of Law Enforcement, imitating his steps. The tunnel was quite spacious. 4 or 5 people standing side by side in the tunnel would not feel crowded. On both sides of the tunnel, there were bright lights, and the whole tunnel was as bright as day. After a while, they walked out of the tunnel and came to a bronze gate that was 10 meters high. The surface of the bronze gate was covered with dense chains, which tightly bound the whole gate. Elder Zhong noticed that there was a palm-shaped dent in the center of the bronze gate. Patriarch of Law Enforcement stretched out his right hand and put it on the dent. His palm fit perfectly with the dent. Crack, crack, crack. Inside the bronze gate, there was the sound of heavy chains sliding. Many chains on the surface of the gate seemed to be alive, moving to both sides and finally hiding in the darkness. After the chains disappeared, the bronze gate was freed and slowly opened to both sides. Behind the gate, there was a bluestone avenue that was wider than the tunnel. On both sides of the bluestone avenue, there were neatly arranged cages with iron fences. There were more or less prisoners in these cages. Elder Zhong could see that after the bronze door opened, these prisoners did not even lift their eyelids. They were probably numb from being locked up for too long. Elder of Law Enforcement brought Elder Zhong along the bluestone path and walked towards the depths. After about a quarter of an hour, the two of them arrived at the end of the bluestone path. There was a huge empty space there, and above the empty space, there was a huge iron cage floating in the air. Upon closer inspection, the top of the iron cage was suspended in midair by a thick and pitch-black chain. There were 3 people locked up in the iron cage. The law enforcement patriarch waved his right hand. With a creaking sound, the black chains that were tied to the iron cage slowly sank down. Clang! The iron cage fell to the ground, and the 3 people in the cage were shocked. Elder Jian Zhong's gaze landed on the 3 people in the cage. He immediately recognized them. They were the slovenly Taoist, Daokong, and DKY. The slovenly Taoist's hands and feet were bound by a golden energy, and he could only lie in the cage miserably. Daokong was kneeling on the ground with a silly smile, and saliva was dripping from the corner of his mouth. DKY hugged his knees helplessly, and his head was on his chest. His entire body was trembling. The law enforcement patriarch opened the side door of the cage and pulled the smiling Daokong out. Pain, pain, haha, haha. Daokong was in pain, but the silly smile on his face did not stop. What do you want? The slovenly Taoist's expression changed slightly. He struggled to crawl over and shouted at the law enforcement patriarch. The law enforcement patriarch sneered. He looked down at the slovenly Taoist and said, Hong Shunwu, my patience is limited. Now, hurry up and tell me the cultivation method of Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. If not, I'll kill your silly disciple. The slovenly Taoist was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He roared, Why? You've already searched his soul, and Daokong is already delirious. Why can't you let him go? The law enforcement patriarch shook his head and said coldly, Hong Shunwu, look at the situation now. Don't you understand the situation? Remnants of the Hong sect should not be allowed to exist in this world. Furthermore, you remnants of the Hong sect dared to kill our Hong martial divine sect's elders, so all of you deserve to die. Now, as long as you tell us the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra, we might give you a quick death and not continue to torture you. The slovenly Taoist calmed down and said softly, Let my 2 disciples go, and I'll give you the cultivation method of the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. The law enforcement patriarch's lips curled into a mocking smile. Let go of these 2 remnants who might become trouble for our Hong martial divine sect in the future. Hong Shunwu, you must be joking. Right now, you don't have any choice. If you're smart enough to tell us the truth, I'll let your 2 adorable disciples suffer less. Or else. As he said that, the law enforcement patriarch's eyes flashed coldly. Fine lightning bolts appeared in his palm as he squeezed Daokong's neck. Ah! Ah! Pain! 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 Daokong struggled with all his might. His eyes were almost white, and he was foaming at the mouth. His voice was shrill. No! Let him go! I'll tell you, the slovenly Taoist lowered his head in pain. He finally gave in, not because of himself, but because of his disciples. Daokong, Dao Jing, and the others had very tragic backgrounds to begin with. They were abandoned children who were left to fend for themselves in a barren land. It was the slovenly Daoist who had picked them up and raised them. The slovenly Taoist had already treated Daokong and DKY as his own son. How could he bear to see Daokong being tortured like this? The law enforcement patriarch's lips curled into a victorious smile as he threw Daokong onto the ground. Daokong was still twitching on the ground. Fresh blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. Save Daokong. He's dying. When the slovenly Daoist priest saw Daokong's appearance, his expression changed drastically, and he roared. The law enforcement patriarch was unmoved as he said indifferently, Since you want to save your disciples, why aren't you writing the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra? Suddenly, the law enforcement patriarch noticed that Elder Jian Zhong, who had been standing beside him, suddenly walked to Daokong's side and carried him up. Chapter 3866. Elder Jian Zhong, do you know what you're doing? Elder of Law Enforcement's face darkened. He looked at Elder Jian Zhong coldly and suppressed his anger. Elder Jian Zhong gently put Daokong beside the slovenly Taoist. Then he turned to Elder of Law Enforcement and said with a wry smile, Elder of Law Enforcement, I'm sorry this time. Elder of Law Enforcement was confused and asked subconsciously, What do you mean? As soon as Patriarch of Law Enforcement finished his words, a strong sense of crisis swept over him. He only felt a gust of cold air flowing from his tailbone to the depths of his mind. Feeling this strong sense of danger, Elder of Law Enforcement retreated decisively. When Elder of Law Enforcement retreated, a vortex appeared in the space beside Elder Jianzhong. Then a fierce purple-gold sword rushed out and attacked Elder of Law Enforcement. Bang! 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 The purple-gold sword slashed 3 times in front of Elder of Law Enforcement. Each slash carried a terrifying sword chi. The surrounding ground and walls all burst open. The clanging sound of swords hitting each other could be heard in the air. Bang! After the last explosion, Elder of Law Enforcement managed to stop himself. He felt a sweet taste and spat out a mouthful of blood. "Who are you?" Elder of Law Enforcement looked up and was shocked to see a young man in black standing beside Elder Jianzhong. Just now, this man suddenly appeared from the void and slashed out a purple-gold sword. The purple-gold sword was very strange. When it fell on him, it cut into his spirit. The terrifying sword essence seemed to be able to cut his spirit at any time. Now, there was still a terrifying sword essence left in his spirit. If he had not resisted it with all his might, he would have been killed. The middle stage of yin-yang change? You actually blocked my sword essence of spirit. The young man in black's eyes were cold and full of undisguised killing intent. His voice was as cold as a knife. Then he stepped forward and walked toward Elder of Law Enforcement. "Who are you?" Elder of Law Enforcement's eyes were full of fear and he could not help retreating. He was too afraid of the purple-gold sword. If he had not reacted in time, he would have been a dead man. Zhuowen, the black-clothed young man, softly spat out these 2 words. However, it caused the pupils of the law enforcement elder to shrink until they turned into needles. "You! It's actually you!" Elder of Law Enforcement screamed. He then looked at Elder Jianzhong and said angrily, "Elder Jianzhong, you traitor. You actually brought a wanted criminal into the law enforcement hall's dungeon. You are playing with fire." Inside the iron cage, Elder Jianzhong smiled bitterly. What could he do? At that time, he only had this one choice. If he didn't agree to Zhuowen's conditions, he would already be a dead man. So long-winded. You should just go to hell. Zhuowen noticed that the law enforcement patriarch was about to send a message. He stepped out with his right foot and turned into an illusory purple shadow, appearing beside the law enforcement patriarch in an instant. He took out a purple-gold sword from between his eyebrows with his right hand and slashed it down, cutting off patriarch of law enforcement's right hand that was about to send a message. The law enforcement elder screamed miserably. He was terrified. He didn't expect Zhuowen to be so strong. Die. Zhuowen didn't give the law enforcement elder any chance. He took out another spiritual soul sword essence. 2 spiritual soul sword essences, one from the front and one from the back, surrounded the law enforcement elder and completely pierced through him. With a plop, the law enforcement elder fell to the ground with blood all over his body. He didn't move an inch. Elder Jianzhong looked at the law enforcement elder on the ground and his legs couldn't help but tremble. He looked at Zhuowen with fear and respect. The law enforcement elder was a middle-stage yin-yang transformation expert after all. Yet, he was easily dealt with by Zhuowen. Elder Jianzhong was really starting to doubt whether Zhuowen was really a nihility god transformation stage cultivator. Was he pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? After the law enforcement elder was defeated by Zhuowen, many of the prisoners in the surrounding cages were alarmed. They all looked at the law enforcement elder who had fallen to the ground and were all shocked. They didn't expect that there would be someone who dared to cause trouble in the prison of the law enforcement hall of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. Moreover, he killed the law enforcement elder. This was too cruel. They looked at Zhuowen's back and their eyes were filled with hope. They all hoped that Zhuowen would be able to save them. Unfortunately, they were disappointed to find that Zhuowen did not even look at them. Instead, he walked straight to the iron cage in the deepest part of the cave. No one dared to make a sound. This was a ruthless person who dared to kill the law enforcement elder. They didn't dare to say anything. If they were killed, it would be too late to cry. Senior brother Dao Wen, senior brother Dao Wen. When DKY heard the commotion, he raised his head. His eyes were red and tears flowed down his cheeks. He threw himself into Zhuowen's arms. Zhuo Wen gently picked up Dao Jing and looked at the little Daoist boy who was crying in his arms. A sense of guilt rose in his heart. Senior brother. Dao Wen. Dao Kong had already woken up. He tilted his head and looked at Zhuo Wen. He repeated DKY's words. Then, he laughed foolishly and clapped his hands. Senior brother Dao Wen, Dao Kong, he doesn't recognize me and my master. DKY sobbed. At this moment, the shackles on the slovenly Daoist had been released by Elder Jian Zhong. He stood up and looked at Zhuo Wen with a complicated gaze. Finally, he bowed deeply to Zhuo Wen and said, Dao Wen, thank you for risking your life to save the three of us. The slovenly Daoist knew that Zhuo Wen didn't have to care about them. After all, the Hong martial divine sect was too dangerous. With Zhuo Wen's strength, it was too risky to save them. The sloppy Daoist didn't even hope that Zhuo Wen would come back to save them. As long as Zhuo Wen could escape from the Hong martial god sect's bounty and take revenge for them in the future, he would be satisfied. However, Zhuo Wen didn't. Instead, he risked his life to save them. At this moment, the slovenly Daoist's view of Zhuo Wen had changed. I'm also a member of the Hong sect. I can't just ignore you guys, Zhuo Wen said seriously. Good. The slovenly Daoist smiled. Sect leader, we can't stay here any longer. Let's leave first, Zhuo Wen said solemnly. The slovenly Daoist nodded. Under Zhuo Wen's signal, they entered Zhuo Wen's great world. Elder Jian Zhong, bring us out of the Hong martial divine sect. After this, I will return the soul imprint to you and you will regain your freedom, Zhuo Wen said to Elder Jian Zhong. Elder Jian Zhong revealed a bitter smile. He knew that he was already on the same boat as Zhuo Wen. It was impossible for him not to help Zhuo Wen. Don't worry, now that our fates are connected, I will definitely bring you out, Elder Jian Zhong sighed. Zhuo Wen nodded. He waved his sleeve and entered the great world. Chapter 3867. In the deep passageway, Elder Jian Zhong followed the memory in his mind and slowly walked towards the top of the passageway. When Elder Jian Zhong's feet landed at the entrance of the passageway, he let out a long sigh of relief. He had finally left the dungeon. Next, he only needed to leave the Hongwu divine sect and he would be completely safe. He silently closed the entrance of the passageway and walked out of the main hall. However, when he reached the entrance of the main hall, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. His body trembled and his eyes widened as he stared at the square in front of the main hall. A figure was slowly walking over. This figure clearly saw Elder Jian Zhong, and with steady footsteps, he arrived at the entrance of the main hall. Sect leader. Elder Jian Zhong secretly broke out in cold sweat, but he forced himself to calm down. He respectfully bowed to this figure and said, "Thank you." The figure that suddenly appeared in the square in front of the main hall was the sect leader of the Hongwu divine sect, Shishan Hong. Jian Zhong, where's the enforcement elder? I'm looking for him, Shishan Hong casually said. Elder Jian Zhong's face revealed a trace of hesitation as he said, "The enforcement elder is currently in the dungeon interrogating the remaining members of the Hong sect. I wonder why sect leader is looking for him." Shishan Hong did not seem to notice the strange expression on Elder Jian Zhong's face as he said seriously, "Doesn't Hong Shenwu have 2 disciples? One of them is already stupid and has no value. I plan to take the other one away. These 2 disciples of Hong Shenwu have cultivated a portion of the Heaven and Earth Howren scripture. If I search their souls, I might be able to piece together a portion of the Heaven and Earth Howren scripture's cultivation method." At this point, Shishan Hong suspiciously said, "However, I sent a message to the enforcement elder but he didn't reply to me. That's why I personally came to the enforcement hall to find him. Jian Zhong, why didn't you enter the dungeon with the enforcement elder?" Elder Jian Zhong was perturbed as he revealed a helpless smile. "The enforcement elder thinks that I don't know how to interrogate and that entering the dungeon would only be a hindrance. That's why he didn't let me in and went in alone to interrogate." Shishan Hong shook his head and said, "The enforcement elder's temperament really hasn't changed after all these years. Since he didn't reply to my message, I'm afraid he's at a crucial point in the interrogation. Otherwise, he would have replied to me, "I'll go in and look for him now. Jian Zhong, do you want to come with me?" Shi Hong invited Elder Jian Zhong. Elder Jian Zhong shook his head and said, "Forget it. Since disciplinary elder doesn't want me to enter the dungeon, there is no need for me to force my way in. In that case, you can go back first." Shi Hong nodded. After Elder Jian Zhong left, Shi Hong's eyelids twitched. For some reason, he felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Maybe he's a little crazy. Shi Hong shook his head and stepped into the main hall. He easily found the entrance to the dungeon and opened it. Shi Hong was, after all, the head of a sect. He had the authority to enter all the tunnels of the Hongwu God sect. Shi Hong walked with mysterious steps, smoothly passing through the passageway full of traps, arriving at the bronze door at the end of the passageway. At this moment, the bronze door was wide open. Shi Hong was not surprised. The bronze door was the entrance to the dungeon. Since the law enforcement elder had come in first, it was impossible for the door to be closed. The moment Shi Hong passed through the bronze door, he immediately felt that something was wrong. This was because he discovered that there were many places in the cage behind the bronze gate that had caved in. Furthermore, he could feel intense energy ripples from these places. It was obvious that an intense battle had just taken place here. Shi Hong's expression changed slightly. He followed the green stone path and quickly entered the depths of the dungeon. Not far from the deepest part, he saw the corpse of the law enforcement elder lying on the ground. He briefly checked and knew that the law enforcement elder was dead. He also noticed that in the deepest part of the green stone path, there was an iron cage that had been placed down. However, there wasn't a single person in the iron cage. Hong Shunwu and the other two who were originally locked up in the iron cage had disappeared without a trace. "Who is it? How dare you make a move in my Hongwu God sect's dungeon? You're simply courting death." Shi Hong roared angrily. He came to the door of a cage and tore it open. He grabbed the prisoner inside the cage and held it in his hand. "Speak. What the hell is going on here? If you don't speak, you'll die immediately," Shi Hong roared. The prisoner trembled in fear. He naturally recognized Shi Hong's identity and knew that he was the #1 expert of the Hongwu God sect. How could he dare to disobey the orders of such an expert? Trembling, he recounted everything that had happened in the dungeon. "What? It's actually Jian Zhong." Shi Hong revealed a look of disbelief. He once again recalled the unnatural expression on Elder Jian Zhong's face when he met him. He immediately realized that this person might be right. Shi Hong casually threw the prisoner on the ground and rushed towards the entrance of the dungeon. At the same time, he issued an emergency signal to the upper echelons of the sect, ordering them to be on alert. After Shi Hong entered the dungeon, Elder Jian Zhong knew that the matter would soon be exposed. Therefore, he hurriedly left this place and rushed towards the Hongwu God sect's mountain gate. As long as he left the Hongwu God sect, he could immediately use the divine ship to escape. At that time, he would have a chance to escape. "Hey, Jian Zhong, you're in such a hurry. Are you planning to leave the sect?" When Jian Zhong arrived at the stone steps in front of the mountain gate, a middle-aged man happened to be returning from outside the mountain gate. When he saw Jian Zhong, he immediately went up to greet him. This middle-aged man was also an elder of the Hongwu God sect. His cultivation was similar to Jian Zhong's, at the early stage of the yin-yang change realm. He had a good relationship with Jian Zhong. At this moment, Jian Zhong did not have the time to chat with this person. He casually brushed him off and hurriedly walked past him. "Hey, Jian Zhong, why are you in such a hurry? Did something happen?" The middle-aged man noticed that Elder Jian Zhong's expression was strange. He chased after him and asked with concern, "I'm fine. I just wanted to go out and relax," Jian Zhong said absent-mindedly. The middle-aged man felt that Jian Zhong was a little strange. However, he did not think too much about it. Coincidentally, the communication jade talisman at his waist lit up. He stopped in his tracks and checked the communication jade talisman with his spiritual will. His body shook and he immediately drew his divine sword and slashed at Zhong. Catcher. However, when the divine sword was about to reach Zhong's back, a purplish gold sword suddenly appeared behind Elder Zhong and cut the divine sword in half. The purplish gold sword did not lose its momentum and continued to slash at the middle-aged man. Chapter 3868. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Zhuowen's voice could be heard. Then, Zhuowen dashed out of the great world, grabbed the middle-aged man, and dashed towards the mountain gate. Although he was in the great world, his spiritual will had been observing the outside world. When he saw the middle-aged man immediately attack Elder Zhong after checking the communication jade amulet, he knew that they had been exposed. At the same time, his spiritual will sensed a terrifying aura within the Hongwu divine sect. These auras were heading towards the mountain gate. It seemed like the experts of the Hongwu divine sect were all alerted. Bang! Just as Zhuowen was about to leave the Hong sect, a strong ripple spread out from the Hongwu divine sect. Then, like a huge light shield, it covered the entire mountain range of the Hongwu divine sect. Zhuo Wen, on the other hand, crashed into the energy ripple that was like a protective barrier. His body was pushed back by the recoil. His feet stomped fiercely in the air as he involuntarily retreated dozens of steps. Every step he took created a terrifying shockwave that formed a boiling pillar of air under his feet. The two guards at the mountain gate stood behind the mountain gate in shock and anger. They didn't dare to fight with Zhuowen. They had seen with their own eyes how Zhuowen killed an elder in the early stage of the yin-yang transformation stage with a single slash. Wouldn't they be courting death if they went up? Furthermore, they recognized Zhuowen's identity. It was Zhuowen who was wanted by the Hongwu divine sect. This is the sect protection array. It seems like the sect master has found out that the enforcement elder has been killed and has issued the highest level of martial law in the sect. Even the sect protection array has been activated. Elder Zhong's face was as pale as a sheet. His body trembled as he continued, "This is a heaven-breaking level 7 array. It's extremely powerful and terrifying." Zhuo Wen's face changed slightly. A heaven-breaking tier 7 formation was indeed a little scary. With his current strength, there was no way he could break through such a formation. "Zhuowen, how dare you barge into the Hongwu divine sect to kill someone? He's simply courting death. Elder Zhong, you are truly audacious. How dare you help a wanted criminal kill a fellow disciple? You traitor, you must die." Countless figures dashed out from the depths of the Hong martial divine sect. They were like a group of demons dancing in a frenzy, densely packed and numerous. Leading the group were more than 10 elders of the Hongwu divine sect. They were the upper echelons of the sect and were at least in the middle stage of the yin-yang transformation stage. Some of them were even at the pinnacle of the yin-yang transformation stage. What surprised Zhuowen was that he didn't see Sikong Chiyu among these people. Elder Zhong's face turned pale as he knelt on the ground. He muttered to himself, "It's over. We're all dead. There's no way we can escape." Zhuowen's gaze was serious. He did not care about Elder Zhong, who had lost his will to fight. Instead, he hovered in the air and looked at the dozens of figures in front of him, landing not far away from him. "Zhuowen, surrender now." The person leading the group was an old man with white hair and beard. His aura was the strongest among these people and he should be at the pinnacle of the yin-yang transformation stage. According to Zhuowen's current strength, he might not be this old man's opponent. Zhuowen knew that he couldn't delay any longer. If Shi Shenhong came out, he wouldn't even have the chance to escape. Therefore, the moment these people appeared in front of him, Zhuowen decisively took out the 3-fire true mirror. Zhuowen's right hand gripped the copper mirror fragment tightly. Vast grand mist god force poured out from his body and entered the 3-fire true mirror. Instantly, the 3-fire true mirror emitted a terrifying pressure. Strange blood-red flames burst out from the copper mirror and gathered in the air. In a short while, the entire sky above the Hong martial divine sect was filled with a sea of blood-red flames. It was a strange and terrifying scene. The instant the blood-red flames filled the sky above the Hong martial divine sect, An extremely terrifying pressure fell on the entire Hong martial divine sect, as if gravity had multiplied by countless times. Many of the cultivators who were originally floating in the air immediately staggered and fell to the ground, causing many cracks to appear on the ground. Only the dozen or so yin-yang transformation stage cultivators were barely able to maintain their hovering position in the air. However, from their slightly trembling bodies, it could be seen that they were having a difficult time resisting the terrifying oppressive might. This is the three-fire true mirror that was auctioned off by the World Auction House. It's actually on this kid. The old man leading the group looked at this scene in shock. His body trembled and his heart was filled with fear. This was a grade 4 astral weapon fragment. Its strength was comparable to a god domain transformation stage expert's strength. Even if Zhuowen's cultivation wasn't enough and he couldn't display the full strength of a grade 4 astral weapon fragment, it was still terrifying. They might not be able to block it easily. Poochie. Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale, but he still gritted his teeth and continued to channel energy into the three-fire true mirror. On the other side, he was frantically absorbing the chaos crystals in the outside world to replenish the large amount of energy in his body. However, it didn't help. The energy he absorbed was much slower than the energy he released. This caused Zhuowen to become weaker. Bloodfire mountain collapse. Zhuowen's gaze turned cold as he summoned the three-fire true mirror in his hand. Instantly, boundless blood-red flames swept over, forming an incomparably huge mountain. The surface of this mountain was burning with blood-red flames. It fell fiercely and covered the dozen or so upper echelons of the Hong martial divine sect. The eyes of the peak yin-yang transformation stage old man narrowed. He gathered all the energy in his body and barely resisted the terrifying pressure of the mountain. He flew back with difficulty, trying to escape the range of the blood mountain. Unfortunately, as soon as he left the range of the blood mountain, a purplish gold sword slashed at him from the strange void and slashed his back. The old man spat out a mouthful of blood and fell forward pathetically, falling into the range of the blood mountain. Zhuowen. He naturally knew that the one who attacked was Zhuowen. He almost cursed out loud. Unfortunately, he didn't manage to curse out loud as the blood mountain covered his entire body. Boom, boom, boom. The blood mountain smashed into the ground. Instantly, terrifying blood-red flames swept out in all directions. 2/5 of the territory of the Hong martial divine sect was engulfed in the horrifying blood flame. Mountains and palaces were all destroyed. Not even ruins were left behind. The blood-red flames were too terrifying. They started to condense together, forming a blood pillar that pierced through the entire Hong martial divine sect and into the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The Hong martial divine sect's sect protection array shone with a blazing light and blocked the blood pillar. However, it didn't last long. The sect protection array crumbled inch by inch, turning into dust. Chapter 3869. The moment Shi Shenhong flew out of the enforcement hall, he could feel the terrifying pressure released by the three-fire true mirror. Following which, his eyes turned red as he saw an incomparably huge blood mountain crashing down from the sky above the mountain gate. With a loud bang, the blood mountain landed within the sect. Following which, a flood of blood flames swept out like a ferocious beast, engulfing 2/5 of the sect. This blood flame was simply too terrifying. Everywhere it passed, everything was incinerated. Not even a blade of grass was left behind. As for the sect-protecting array around the Hong martial divine sect, it started to crumble and disappear under this attack. What made Shi Shenhong even more devastated was that the 10 upper echelons of his Hongwu divine sect were completely annihilated by this attack. These upper echelons were the backbone of the Hongwu divine sect. Even the weakest amongst them was in the yin-yang transformation. Now that all of them were dead, the impact on the Hongwu divine sect was simply too great. Zhuowen. I want you dead. I want you dead. I want you dead. Shi Shenhong let out a beast-like roar. His voice was so loud that it shook the entire Hong martial divine sect. It reverberated throughout the heavens and earth. A terrifying aura burst out from Shi Shenhong's body. His figure was like lightning as he charged out. He stopped above the blood flames and looked at the boundless blood flames. Then, he looked at Zhuowen, who had almost turned into a black dot and disappeared. He hesitated for a while, but in the end, he didn't chase after him. Instead, he used all his strength to extinguish the blood flames below him. This blood flame was emitted by the Grade 4 astral weapon, 3 Fire True Mirror. It had the characteristic of being indestructible. If this blood flame was allowed to continue wreaking havoc in the Hongwu Divine Sect, it wouldn't be long before it spread to the entire Hongwu Divine Sect. At that time, the Hongwu Divine Sect would really be annihilated. At the same time that Shi Shenhong was extinguishing the blood flames, an equally powerful figure flew over from the depths of the mountain range not far from the sect. This figure was the Hongwu Divine Sect's number 2 expert, Sikong Chiyu. This is the blood flames of the 3 Fire True Mirror? Sect leader, what exactly happened? I just went out for a while. Why did such a thing happen inside the sect? Sikong Chiyu said with immense shock. Shi Shenhong forcefully suppressed his rage and said to Sikong Chiyu, Sikong, all of this was done by that Zhuowen. Immediately chase after that Zhuowen. He had to bring him back. Otherwise, don't come back. Sikong Chiyu's pupils shrunk. She only felt that it was inconceivable. Zhuowen was only at the Nihility God transformation stage. How did he obtain the 3 Fire True Mirror? Furthermore, with Zhuowen's cultivation, he simply did not have the ability to activate the power of a rank 4 astral soldier like the 3 Fire True Mirror. However, that fella had done such a thing and even destroyed 2/5 of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. Sikong, what are you waiting for? Why aren't you chasing after that Zhuowen? Shi Shenhong's gaze darkened as he looked at Sikong Chiyu. His tone became extremely unfriendly. Sikong Chiyu frowned slightly. Although she was very unhappy with Shi Shenhong's attitude, the latter was still the sect leader of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. She naturally could not disobey Shi Shenhong's orders. Since this kid can use the 3 Fire True Mirror, although his strength is nothing much, the 3 Fire True Mirror is too terrifying. Even I might not be able to block the attack of the 3 Fire True Mirror, Sikong Chiyu said worriedly. Don't worry. This kid's cultivation is too low. He must have paid a huge price to use the 3 Fire True Mirror. Furthermore, you only need to block them for a while. Shi Shenhong said coldly. Sikong Chiyu did not say anything else. She only nodded and flew towards the distant horizon. Shi Shenhong coldly looked at Sikong Chiyu's departing figure, then silently began to extinguish the blood flames in the surroundings. Although the blood flames covered a large area, Shi Shenhong's cultivation was extraordinary. He was even stronger than Sikong Chiyu, a mid-stage god domain transformation expert. Therefore, he did not need to use too much divine power to extinguish the blood flames. After Shi Shenhong extinguished the blood flames, he instructed a few elders to reorganize the sect. Then, with endless killing intent, he flew towards the distant horizon. This time, their Hong Martial Divine Sect had suffered heavy losses. If he did not kill Zhuowen, he, Shi Shenhong, would not be worthy of being the sect leader of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. Whoosh! In the vast horizon, a stream of light rapidly swept past. It was a huge divine ship. At this moment, on the deck of the divine ship, Zhuowen stood silently at the forefront. His eyes were solemn as he controlled the ship to move forward. In his hand was a bottle of medicine. Divine pills were poured into his mouth, turning into surging medicinal energy that spread throughout his body, healing his injuries. With a wave of his sleeve, he grabbed Elder Jianzhong. At this moment, Elder Jianzhong's body was still trembling. His eyes were filled with the emotions of being reborn. Jianzhong, I'll return this spiritual imprint to you. Now that you're free, you can leave. Zhuowen said calmly as he took out Elder Jianzhong's spiritual imprint from his spiritual imprint and inserted it into the latter's spiritual imprint. Elder Jianzhong looked at Zhuowen with a complicated gaze. He did not expect Zhuowen to have such a powerful trump card. In one move, he killed more than 10 elders of the Hong Martial Divine Sect and destroyed 2/5 of the sect. He began to doubt if this guy was really a void god transformation realm cultivator. Otherwise, how could he have such powerful means? Still not leaving? You won't be able to leave later. Zhuo Wen coldly glanced at the slightly absent-minded elder Jianzhong and said expressionlessly. Elder Jianzhong came back to his senses and cupped his fists at Zhuo Wen seriously. Then, he left his divine ship and fled in another direction. He decided to leave the central region. From now on, he would never take half a step into the central region. Not long after Elder Jianzhong left, Zhuo Wen's expression changed slightly. A faintly discernible sense of danger began to surface in his mind. He released a powerful spiritual force and started to scan behind him. Then, his face turned gloomy. Hundreds of thousands of miles behind him, he discovered a figure rushing towards him. Moreover, this figure was getting faster and faster. The distance between them was rapidly shortening. In Zhuo Wen's spiritual force, he recognized the identity of this figure. It was Sikong Qiyu. In a short while, the wind and clouds above Zhuo Wen changed. An incomparably huge hand came crashing down on the divine ship. Zhuo Wen's reaction was extremely fast. The moment the hand came crashing down, he left the divine ship and retreated thousands of meters away. He watched as the divine ship was crushed by the huge hand. Chapter 3870. Zhuo Wen's gaze looked at Sikong Qiyu vigilantly. Just now, he used the three-fire true mirror. Currently, his essence energy could be said to be greatly depleted. He could at most use the three-fire true mirror one more time now. But this thing must catch Sikong Qiyu off guard before he could hit her. And it was impossible for Sikong Qiyu to stand in place foolishly and be beaten by him. Therefore, the current situation was very disadvantageous to him. Sikong Qiyu, do you still remember what you said to Miss Luo back then? Zhuo Wen was silent for a moment and suddenly opened his mouth. Sikong Qiyu was taken aback and looked at Zhuo Wen rather surprisedly and said with a cold smile, "What do you mean by this? Isn't my meaning clear enough? You and I joining hands have the possibility of killing Shi Shenhong. Isn't your goal to kill Shi Shenhong?" Zhuo Wen said coolly. Sikong Qiyu's brows furrowed slightly. The killing intent in his eyes became stronger and stronger, staring fixedly at Zhuo Wen. But Zhuo Wen turned a deaf ear to Sikong Qiyu's killing intent. Instead, he looked at Sikong Qiyu silently. He knew that Sikong Qiyu was conflicted and hesitant right now. Otherwise, Sikong Qiyu would have long made a move to take action against him. Zhuo Wen was not in a hurry. He looked at Sikong Qiyu and waited silently, waiting for Sikong Qiyu's final answer. Shi Shenhong carried a bellyful of rage and unleashed his movement technique with all his might, rushing forward explosively. It was only to see places that he passed through, horrifying energy ripples spread out. The surrounding space was affected until it trembled violently, as if it would collapse at any time. Shi Shenhong virtually lost his reason, the fury in his chest continuously accumulating, wanting to completely vent it out at any time. Bang! 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 Only to see Shi Shenhong's figure sweep past a massive lake. Immediately, horrifying high waves surged on the lake's surface. The instant the high waves fell to the ground, the entire lake was collapsing. An unprecedentedly terrifying hole appeared. Furthermore, this hole was bottomless, akin to an abyss. It was pitch black, looking exceptionally terrifying and strange. While the lake water also poured into the abyss one after another. The naked eye could not see in the end where this lake water reached the abyss at all. Amen. Shi Shenhong seemed to have sensed something. The communication jade talisman at his waist lit up with a rather bright light. He slowed down a little and used his divine sense to check the message in the communication jade charm. After he finished reading, his face was filled with ecstasy. He sped up and mumbled to himself, "Zhuo Wen, you're dead meat. You're really dead. If I don't kill you today, I won't be the sect head of the Hong martial divine sect, Shi Shenhong." Before long, Shi Shenhong arrived at a valley. This was precisely the place that Sikong Qiyu mentioned in the message she gave him. At that moment, on the empty ground in the middle of the valley, Sikong Qiyu was standing. Beside her feet was a figure that was in a sorry state. This figure was bound by a powerful force and could not move at all. It could only struggle. When Shi Shenhong saw this figure, He immediately recognized that it was Zhuowen. However, just as Shi Shenhong was about to take a step forward, he thought of something and suddenly stopped. He looked suspiciously at Sikong Chiyu and said, "Sikong, if I'm not mistaken, this kid has the 3-fire true mirror on him. That's a rank 4 astral weapon, yet it was actually captured by you so easily." Sikong Chiyu smiled slightly and said, "Sect Master, this boy's cultivation is too low after all. He's only at the Void God transformation stage." He forcefully used a rank 4 astral weapon. Although he displayed great power, his foundation was injured because of this. He's already an arrow at the end of its flight. How can he be my opponent? Hearing this, Shi Shenhong nodded in agreement. There was no loophole in Sikong Chiyu's statement. After he chased out, he also guessed so. However, Shi Shenhong still did not approach Sikong Chiyu. Instead, he spread out his right hand and said coldly, "Now, hand this person over to me." Although Sikong Chiyu was the second in command of the Hong martial divine sect, Shi Shenhong had never trusted the former. Sikong Chiyu chuckled. She did not feel strange because of Shi Shenhong's lack of trust. Instead, she obediently lifted Zhuowen and threw him to Shi Shenhong. When Zhuowen was thrown over, Shi Shenhong let out a sigh of relief and relaxed his vigilance. The killing intent and fury in his eyes were incomparably cold as they shot out. This boy actually dared to break into the law enforcement hall's dungeon, kill more than a dozen of his Hong martial divine sect's higher-ups, and destroy a large portion of the sect's territory. This was simply an unforgivable crime. He must kill this boy. However, the instant Zhuowen's figure approached, a strong sense of danger arose in Shi Shenhong's heart. Then, he felt a terrifying pressure enveloping his body, causing all the hair on his body to stand on end. Moreover, a large amount of sweat flowed out and rustled down. Divine realm? Shi Shenhong immediately reacted. He knew that this was the power of the divine realm. Rumble. At the same time, a terrifying fist light blasted out from behind him, ruthlessly smashing towards the back of his head. Shi Shenhong could not be bothered with Zhuowen in front of him. He subconsciously thought that this Zhuowen was completely restrained and could not pose any threat to him. He suddenly turned around and punched behind him. Two fists collided. Instantly, terrifying ripples rose in the surroundings. Moreover, a series of firecracker-like explosions resounded. Then, Shi Shenhong saw Sikong Chiyu's expressionless face. "Sikong Chiyu, you have big guts, actually daring to make a move against me. Are you trying to rebel?" Shi Shenhong was both shocked and furious. He really did not expect Sikong Chiyu to actually make a move, so he was not on guard. This was a hasty counterattack. However, Shi Shenhong was worthy of being a middle-stage divine realm transformation expert. He was even a minor realm higher than Sikong Chiyu. Even if he made a hasty counterattack, he still did not fall into a disadvantageous position and was evenly matched with Sikong Chiyu. But Shi Shenhong soon discovered a trace of a mocking smile at the corners of Sikong Chiyu's mouth. He was first stunned, then immediately felt a swift and fierce sword intent surge out from behind him. Not good. Shi Shenhong's expression changed greatly. He had yet to turn around when a series of purplish gold greatswords already slashed over, blasting into the depths of his forehead. A total of 49 purplish gold greatswords slammed into Shi Shenhong's divine soul. Terrifying sword intent wreaked havoc and bombarded his divine soul without the slightest scruple, as if wanting to blow his entire divine soul into smithereens. Even if Shi Shenhong's divine soul had already reached shattering Heaven 7 transformations, being bombarded by 49 purplish gold greatswords still turned his divine soul into a complete mess. "Sikong Chiyu, you actually dare to join forces with this ant, you deserve to die." Shi Shenhong was enraged. He erupted with a powerful divine domain, instantly suppressing Sikong Chiyu's divine domain. At the same time, he smashed a fist over ruthlessly. Sikong Chiyu's expression changed slightly. She turned around and blasted out a punch. Then, she discovered to her horror that Shi Shenhong's offensive was seriously too terrifying. She suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood and retreated repeatedly. Chapter 3871. At this moment, Shushan Hong wasn't feeling too good either. He had lost the initiative to begin with. Sikong Chiyu's sneak attack succeeded, and then Zhuowen's 49 purplish gold greatswords pierced into his divine soul. He had already suffered considerable internal injuries. Now, after forcefully unleashing his divine domain and forcing Sikong Chiyu back with a punch, he could feel a sense of weakness gradually surging into his heart. But soon, his expression changed. He suddenly felt a terrifying pressure surging from the void behind him. He was all too familiar with this pressure. Wasn't it the pressure of the three-fire true mirror that he felt in the Hong martial divine sect? This ant, he can actually use the three-fire true mirror again? Shushan Hong suddenly turned around. He saw Zhuowen's right hand tightly grasping a rather broken bronze mirror. But it was this inconspicuous bronze mirror that had annihilated almost all of the higher-ups in the Hong martial divine sect. Moreover, it had even destroyed 2/5 of the sect's territory. Ant. Die. Shushan Hong's killing intent soared. He could tell that Zhuowen needed a period of time to gather power to forcefully activate the three-fire true mirror. And this period of time was enough for him to get close to Zhuowen and kill him. Therefore, Shushan Hong attacked without hesitation. He punched out and a terrifying fist imprint as vast as a mountain appeared in the sky. When the enormous fist imprint appeared and landed on Zhuowen's body, a figure blocked in front of Zhuowen and similarly punched out, blocking the fist imprint. The figure that blocked in front of Zhuowen was Sikong Chiyu. Zhuowen, use the three-fire true mirror's power as much as you want. I'll block Shushan Hong's attacks for you during this period of time, Sikong Chiyu said calmly. Zhuowen didn't say anything. Instead, he channeled the energy in his body into the three-fire true mirror at an even faster speed. The terrifying blood flames became even more violent, shooting straight into the sky and igniting a boundless sea of blood flames. Sikong Chiyu, you still haven't realized your mistake? If you kneel in front of me and beg for mercy, perhaps I'll let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Shushan Hong was both shocked and furious. This Sikong Chiyu was truly too despicable. She actually dared to obstruct him at this crucial moment. Sikong Chiyu sneered. She didn't answer Shushan Hong's question. However, the movements of her hands became faster and more powerful. Her attacks became fiercer. Sikong Chiyu, why did you betray the Hong martial divine sect? When have I, Shushan Hong, treated you? Shushan Hong saw that he couldn't completely take down Sikong Chiyu in a short period of time. At the same time, he also felt that Zhuowen's aura was getting stronger and stronger. He almost roared in rage, but his heart was filled with doubts. Sikong Chiyu was the second in command of the Hong martial divine sect. Her position and authority were only below him. He still found it somewhat hard to believe that Sikong Chiyu would betray him. This was simply illogical. Sikong Chiyu did her best to resist Shushan Hong's attacks. Suddenly, she opened her mouth and said, Shushan Hong, do you still remember the Sai family? Shushan Hong was stunned and subconsciously muttered to himself, Sai family? Who? You're really an eminent person with short memory. 10,000 years ago, the #1 family in Central State, the Sai family, could it be that you forgot? Sikong Chiyu's eyes seethed with killing intent as he growled. Amen. You're a remnant of the Sai family? The Sai family actually still has people alive. Shushan Hong looked at Sikong Chiyu in surprise. But Sikong Chiyu smiled. It was just that his smile was filled with a piercingly cold intent. 10,000 years ago, the #1 family in Central State, the Sai family, had boundless glory. They were the true #1 force in Central State in name. Even the Hong martial divine sect back then was somewhat inferior compared to the Sai family. But on a certain night 10,000 years ago, a group of over a dozen experts entered the Sai family and instantly killed the Sai family's upper echelons, and exterminated the entire Sai family. And the Sai family's #1 expert, Sai Shinyong, a middle-stage divine realm transformation mighty expert, actually died a violent death too. Sikong Chiyu's real name was Sai Saitama. 1,000 years ago, he had once headed to the Li Yuan main region to train. But after he returned from training, what he saw were the Sai family's ruins as well as corpses buried in the ruins. Back then, Sai Saitama knelt in the ruins and kowtowed heavily, swearing that he would definitely find the culprit and avenge the Sai family. Then, he wiped his tears and left the Sai family's ruins. After several hundred years of investigation, he finally found out the reason why the Sai family was exterminated and the culprit. Back then, the one who exterminated the Sai family was Hong Marshal Shengzon's divine devil transformation expert. And the reason why Hong Marshal Shengzon's experts moved out was because the Sai family hid a clue regarding a rank 5-star soldier. A rank 5-star soldier was far superior to a rank 4-star soldier. It had almost never appeared in Central State. Even in the Li Yuan main region, a rank 5-star soldier was an extremely rare treasure. Although the Sai family didn't possess a true rank 5-star soldier, just this clue alone was enough to bring about a calamity of extermination. Originally, this clue was the Sai family's biggest secret and should have been kept very well. Outsiders shouldn't know about it at all. However, back then, the Sai family's patriarch and Hong Marshal Divine Sect's patriarch Shushan Hong were best friends. During a conversation, Sai family's patriarch Sai Shinyong accidentally revealed this clue and instructed Shushan Hong to never reveal this information. Shushan Hong naturally promised repeatedly, but when he returned to Hong Marshal Divine Sect, he immediately reported this matter to Hong Marshal Shengzon's upper echelons. What happened next was naturally self-evident. Hong Marshal Shengzon sent out experts at the Divine Devil Transformation and exterminated the Sai family in a single night. And because Shushan Hong was meritorious for revealing this secret, he was rewarded with many cultivation resources. Originally, Shushan Hong's aptitude wasn't particularly good. But because of these cultivation resources, his cultivation rose steadily over the past 10,000 years and he jumped into the mid-stage God domain transformation. Moreover, he smoothly became the sect master of Hong Marshal Divine Sect. After Sai Chiyu found out about this, he had already made up his mind to kill Shushan Hong. Thus, he changed his name to Sai Chiyu and smoothly entered Hong Marshal Divine Sect. Moreover, under continuous cultivation, his cultivation smoothly reached the early stage God domain transformation. However, Sai Chiyu knew that his aptitude was limited. The early stage God domain transformation was already his limit. Unless he came across an unexpected opportunity, it would be difficult for him to advance. However, Shushan Hong was different. He had made a great contribution and was rewarded with many resources and powerful divine artifacts by Hong Marshal Shengzon. Unless his cultivation was stronger than Shushan Hong, there was no way he could kill Shushan Hong. Back then, he cooperated with Luo Lingyu because Luo Lingyu's aptitude was much better than his. He believed that Luo Lingyu would definitely surpass Shushan Hong one day and kill him. Therefore, he proposed to cooperate and let Luo Lingyu go. But now, not only did Zhuoan obtain the 3-fire true mirror, but he also gained the recognition of the artifact spirit and could use the 3-fire true mirror's power. The 3-fire true mirror's power was much stronger than his. He believed that the 3-fire true mirror could heavily injure or even kill Shushan Hong. Chapter 3872. Shushan Hong, you must die today. Sikong Chiyu recalled the annihilated Sai clan, and her eyes became incomparably red. Her attacks became even fiercer. Shushan Hong's complexion was not too good. Although he could feel the faintly discernible hostility from Sikong Chiyu towards him in the past, he had always thought that Sikong Chiyu was the successor of the Sai clan. But he had always thought that this was because Sikong Chiyu coveted his position as sect master. Although he was on guard, he didn't care too much about it. Because as far as he was concerned, with Sikong Chiyu's natural talent and strength, once he stepped down from the position of sect master in the future, he would naturally pass the position of sect master to Sikong Chiyu. But what he didn't expect was that Sikong Chiyu revealing hostility towards him was entirely because of Sai clan's matter. This was a situation of life and death. Sikong Chiyu, get out of my way, Shushan Hong roared, but his heart was strong but not enough. His divine soul still retained the sword intent of the purple gold greatsword. He was barely able to resist this sword intent and was unable to unleash all of his strength. Sikong Chiyu naturally also saw Shushan Hong's decline. Her attacks became fiercer and fiercer, more and more terrifying. She very well carried out the principle of taking your life while you're down. Senior Seekong, get out of the way. Suddenly, Zhuowen's solemn voice came from behind Seekong Chiyu. Seekong Chiyu was overjoyed. She desperately used her strongest attack and broke away from Shishunhong's battle. Then, she saw Zhuowen behind her, holding the Tri-Fire True Mirror in one hand. And above him, an endless sea of blood flames rapidly condensed into a blood mountain burning with raging blood flames. Zhuowen's gaze was cold and emotionless. His right hand formed a sword finger, pointing to the horizon, and then suddenly swung down. The blood mountain in the sky fell down at a terrifying speed, leaving behind a bright blood trail in the air. Shishunhong's pupils shrank. He wanted to retreat, but no matter how he retreated, he was already locked on by the blood mountain's aura. So what if he retreated? The blood mountain's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it landed on Shishunhong's body. Immediately after, the terrifying blood flames exploded. The deafening explosion engulfed the surrounding several trillion miles. As for Zhuowen and Seekong Chiyu, the two of them had already left in advance. The valley below and the endless mountain range around the valley were all gradually annihilated, disappearing, and collapsing in the blood flames. In the end, the mountain range became a bottomless abyss. Above the abyss, endless bloody flames burned as if they would never be extinguished. Poochie. Zhuowen suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his complexion was ghastly pale. He swiftly withdrew the Tri-Fire True Mirror and subconsciously distanced himself from Seekong Chiyu. Seekong Chiyu glanced indifferently at Zhuowen and said, "Zhuowen, don't worry. I, Seekong Chiyu, am not such a lowly person. It was all thanks to your help that I was able to kill Shishunhong. I can swear that I won't snatch the Three-Fire True Mirror from you, and I owe you a favor." Zhuowen still looked at Seekong Chiyu vigilantly. He was not a newborn calf. Just based on Seekong Chiyu's words, he would not foolishly believe it. Seekong Chiyu did not care about the suspicious look in Zhuowen's eyes either. Instead, his gaze landed on that valley where Shishunhong was at. More accurately speaking, it was already not a valley now, but a bottomless abyss. Above this abyss, boundless bloody flames floated. He revealed a trace of relief. He truly could not sense Shishunhong's aura anymore. Under such a horrifying attack, Seekong Chiyu thought that this Shishunhong should not be able to survive either. But it was at this instant that Seekong Chiyu relaxed that a strong ominous feeling welled up in his heart. It was only to see a divine spear suddenly extend out of the void behind Seekong Chiyu, swiftly sweeping towards Seekong Chiyu's back. Seekong Chiyu's pupils constricted, but his reaction was extremely fast. The instant the divine spear swept over, his body immediately shifted to one side, dodging this sure-hit divine spear. But the divine spear's speed was too fast. Even though Seekong Chiyu avoided his vitals, he was still struck by this divine spear on his left shoulder blade. It was only to see fresh blood spurt out from his left shoulder blade. Seekong Chiyu gave a muffled groan and fell down from midair in a sorry state. When Seekong Chiyu barely managed to stabilize his figure in midair, the divine spear in the void vortex swept out completely. And what came out together with the divine spear was also a figure. Shishunhong. Seekong Chiyu's pupils constricted, only feeling incredulous as he stared fixedly at this man holding the divine spear. He was precisely Shishunhong. It was just that Shishunhong was currently in an extremely sorry state. The clothes on his entire body were utterly tattered. Even his hair was burned away by the bloody flames, becoming bald. "You're actually not dead." Seekong Chiyu looked at Shishunhong in disbelief. Under such a horrifying attack, apart from Shishunhong being a little wretched, he did not suffer too many injuries. Shishunhong grinned and said, "Seekong Chiyu, your understanding of me is still too little. Do you know what the divine spear in my hand is?" Only then did Seekong Chiyu's attention land on the divine spear in Shishunhong's hand. He sensed the berserk aura flowing out from inside the divine spear. His pupils constricted and he said in a low voice, "This is a heaven-breaking rank 7 divine artifact." Haha. Yes, this spear is called Limitless Space-Piercing Spear. It's connected to a certain dimensional space. The power of the three-fire true mirror is indeed very powerful. But I made use of this spear to enter the dimensional space and avoid that level of attack. Shi Shunhong's eyes became increasingly pleased with himself. His right hand suddenly waved. A horrifying spear intent swept out, turning into a violent gale, rumbling towards the Zhuoan not far away. Originally, Zhuoan planned on fleeing right away the instant Shi Shunhong appeared. Now, seeing Shi Shunhong's attack with his eyes, he knew that he could not leave anymore. His eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. He took out several purple-gold greatswords and slashed on top of this spear intent. Poochie. Zhuoan discovered to his shock that the purple-gold greatswords were easily minced by the spear intent. Then, they landed directly on his body. His entire body blossomed with bright blood, and his entire person fell to the ground in a sorry state. And the instant Zhuoan landed on the ground, Shi Shunhong moved. He shot out like lightning. His target was shockingly Zhuoan. Zhuoan used the three-fire true mirror one after another and was already unbearably weak. How could he possibly be Shi Shunhong's match? The instant Shi Shunhong landed beside him, he punched Zhuoan in the abdomen. Zhuoan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and knelt on the ground on one knee. His breathing became extremely hurried. Shi Shunhong took out a ring and took it out, enveloping Zhuoan's surroundings. It turned into a golden light screen, wrapping Zhuoan's entire person inside. After doing these, Shi Shunhong no longer paid attention to Zhuoan. Instead, he rushed out explosively, heading towards Sikong Chiyu not far away. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.